Hello everyone and welcome to the... Damn it, I did it again.
AJ has one job when he starts the show, is to look up the number of the goddamn fucking show.
Remember, we've kind of changed numbering around. I think this is the 10th?
You're making me now do the hard work, which is logging in the application, pulling it up. Yes, I am whatever you're using that term to pass the time while you look it up is called. I don't know that term. It is episode 11. Episode 10 was the last episode. Oh, the audience an apology.
So did you do we did a full interview one, that's why.
Yes.
Because my my filing system, I have interviews separate. So.
So it's been like, between this one going up and the last one, there's going to be 4 episodes in between there that are not considered SWW shows. Just so you have it figured out. It's been a while.
For this show. Yeah.
Well, we've both been moving and working, obviously, so it's been a while. We don't really... You've been hitting your new job, too, so it's been a while, okay?
Yeah. But, yeah.
But yeah, what's it? Episode 11.
Episode 11. Not a ton of stuff going on, because it's the summer.
It is not just summer, it's August, which means, like, nothing happens.
Well, I guess there's one game that I've played, but...
What the hell? Oh, let me guess. It's a racing game.
Well, kind of, because
I've always assumed it's a racing game with you.
I'm still playing Forza.
Is Forza... Are they doing more live events, or is that game basically done, right? No, there's not a new Forza next year, is there? It's just DLC.
It's, Horizon 4 has, like... I've told you this, they have the seasons. And
right,
so
I knew that, yeah.
They do 4 every month. 1 a week. And, it just keeps going. And, like, that's how they're introducing, new cars.
Legos? Oh, so that's how they
introduce Legos.
Legos.
Is a totally its own expansion.
Wouldn't it be amazing if, like, one day you open it up, there's just, like, a Lego in the world, and the next week there's another Lego. Like, they replace every building one at a time with a Lego.
Yeah. I mean, the weird thing is, right, because it's a totally different area. So, it's not like, it's not like you could easily just... It's not like when they would do the, Snow DLC, where you could...
We're just kind of overlay.
It's an entirely different area, so...
Fascinating. So is Forza still... So what is the game you're playing, then?
It's the game that signals that games are coming out again.
You're playing Madden.
20.
Legally, that is the definition of game season is happening is Madden. If anyone didn't know this. And basically, this should literally be on the calendar of, like, video game season should just be the Madden release date.
Yeah. I mean, like, this one seems abnormally early.
I was about to say also, I always pictured it, like, mid-August.
Yeah.
And right now it's... When did it come
Came
out? Tuesday?
Last week at some time. It came out in July.
Oh yeah, you're also weird because it's also weird because it's you have the EA stuff, so I don't know if dates are weird for you.
So I think it launched 2 weeks early on that. Because is it out or is it?
You think I would know this?
Madden 20. At least August 2nd, so it's out. Well, I guess Madden 19 launched August 10th, so it's not necessarily early for them.
So, Okay, but 10th, and I know they're not that much different. Actually, no, we're talking about like this point, like extra week and a half.
The 2nd to the 10th.
Okay, an extra week. But the point is more so like I don't know. There is a to me it feels like that's where you're getting almost mid-month. Where now.
Well, that's because so the 1st would have been that Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So they released on just that next Friday, which was the 10th.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, with Origin Premiere, I got it. I think the 26th, 25th, maybe. Anyway, I got it early, and it's mad.
I was gonna say, and I know maybe if you enjoy it, it's not a big deal, but I assume Madden yearly basis stays the same, right? Roughly, because since they switch engines, that is.
I mean, they've got some interesting new things they're called Superstar X Factors. So where, like, it's 1 or 2 normally players a team. Like, if they accomplish certain goals, they become in the zone, and then when they're in the zone, like some quarterbacks, it's like Patrick Mahomes. He's the cover guy. His in the zone is called Bazooka Arm, and that gives him an added 15 yards to his range, and that's done by completing, I believe it's 2 or 3 passes that travel over 30 yards in the air. So it's like some of the, some interesting stuff of, and then it's like so they've had always, or I say always, the past 2 years, the long shot mode, which is like where you're playing a character. The first one was awesome. The second one was kind of weak. So this one, 20, has kind of got its version of that, where you actually start out as, you can create your character, and then I think it's 12 college schools are licensed, and they licensed the college football playoff. So you choose a school. The whole storyline is you're a 5-star quarterback. You choose a school. Your freshman year, it's announced that the number 1 player in the nation who's a quarterback decommits and is committing to whatever school you choose. And so you ride the bench for 4 years. So actually, it's kind of cool because you can choose your team, and if you know the team, like, you can kind of go in going, okay, I'm more of a. It really helps if you play Madden a lot. If you're more of a like pocket passer, you probably don't want to choose like Clemson or Oklahoma or Oregon. So the spread offenses that are just 5 wide and just run and gun basically. So you're probably going to choose like an Oklahoma or Miami or Florida or Florida State. Anyway, so you choose that, and then you can actually kind of choose, like, there's a question right away of like, how would you describe your quarterbacking style? And there's 4 choices, and depending on what you choose, kind of like, that's what your attributes are focused towards. So there's like field general, there's improviser, scrambler, and big thrower, deep arm, something like that. So as you like, if you choose scrambler, you're going to be faster, have a better throw on the run, but have worse accuracy or worse range. Whereas if you do, big arm, you're going to have longer range, probably a little bit better mid and deep accuracy, but your throw on the run is going to be horrendous. So, and then you go on to play the semifinal game, and you actually get to pick who you want to play.
Okay.
of the remaining college teams. And then if you win that, you go on and play the final. And so I've done this mode probably, at least the beginning part of it, probably 6 or 7 times. Mainly because
Really?
it's like, okay, I should be winning these games, but I'm not. So just restart, just, go from there, and then play it. And basically, if you lose the semifinal game, you go straight into the combine. And then probably the best you can do is like 6th round.
Hmm.
But if you win everything, if you win the national title, if you do really well in the combine, you get drafted first overall, which is what happened on my current playthrough. So you kind of affect history because they talk about Kyler Murray was the first overall pick. I thought maybe they would do the kind of like cheat it and maybe throw you in the latter half of the first round. But no, they make you the first overall pick, and then it's just Madden. So, yeah. I think my guy coming out of college was like a 78 or 79 overall, which is pretty high.
Especially if you're out of college, I assume that you guys start lower in that game.
Yeah, if you don't like, I think the worst my guy's overall was coming into the league was like 74. So
Okay.
it's not like you're dog shit. You can still, it might be a little frustrating the first half of the season, but as you get better, it's a little bit better in that. But yeah,
That's okay. Nice. But at the end of the day, you're enjoying this
yeah.
then?
I mean, it's Madden. It plays like Madden. I've had some really funny bugs, which I think are accentuated because I'm playing on PC. So it's like, it's the third platform. It's not. If something's happening, they're gonna fix it on the PS4 and Xbox before they fix it on the PC. But one day I had the ref calling all of the calls with his back to the camera. Like his model was just rotated 180 degrees, which is pretty funny. I've had some annoying bugs where like it sticks me in the like the super wide shot that they use during timeouts and stuff like that. So then I have to call the timeout to reset the camera basically. Otherwise I have to run the play and I can't see anything. So yeah.
Interesting. Nice. What have I been? So I've been traveling a lot. So I started picking up. Do you remember I talked about Hades a couple of months ago? The Supergiant game on the Epic
I
Games
remember
Store.
you talking about it.
So I picked that back up a bit more because I've been doing more updates for it since I last played it. Still really good. It's also very interesting to like watch every update. It's like you could see like they switch out UI graphics or switch in new music on top of like just balance stuff, and it's very fascinating to like watch it change in that regard. Especially from a team who's done this type of stuff enough to like know what they're doing. It's not like you see early access games evolve all the time, but it's not like rookie mistakes. A lot of early access stuff that I've played recently have been like a newer devs doing the stuff. These are experienced people doing it. So it's fascinating to like what do they determine as important.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I still do enjoy the game a lot. Definitely you could tell, it's like any roguelite, when you put it down and come back to it, how rusty you are. Because it's like, I remember this first area being easy. I used to be able to like do the first area without getting touched, and now like sometimes I'm struggling doing it, just because I have to get used to it again.
Yeah.
Or just getting in the groove. So, another thing I watched. So, this is on my flights. I watched Shazam. So, AJ, have you seen Shazam?
You know, I was gonna watch it on my flight, but I didn't.
Okay.
Or one of my flights.
Shazam, it's an okay film. It's not it's of the DC films, one of the good ones. Okay. This is not my problem with this film. So do you know how DC doesn't have Chicago, they have Gotham, right? They don't have New York, they have Metropolis,
Alright, so
right?
I'm gonna burst your bubble here. I watched the Cinema Sins on Shazam. So
Yeah.
I probably know a lot of what you're about to say.
About to say. Why the fuck do they have Philadelphia?
For those wondering if you couldn't hear through the mush, he's wondering why they have Philadelphia.
Considering DC is like known for like they have Metropolis, Star City, Gotham. Why did we go? You know, we need Philadelphia. Do you know why? It's because no one lives there. They don't even know that's a real city.
Philadelphia is a beautiful city.
I don't have an issue against Philadelphia. It was just the entire time, it was just bugging me being like, this is DC. You should have a cool name for the city. Not calling it Philadelphia. Am I wrong?
I don't see it as much of an issue as...
Also, it's very interesting to me how they reference that, like, Superman and Batman are real, but, like, are shocked when they see, like, a supervillain, which is always what's fascinating to me about this kind of stuff.
Well, and they mention Harry Potter and what else?
But that's not in the same world per se. That's more like it's Warner Brothers, so they can mention that kind of stuff.
Well, no, but just the idea of if Harry Potter exists,
Harry Potter's fantasy
exists in the world of superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't.
That would be,
really, you know what I mean, like.
But all the problems just stay over in London, so no one actually cares.
Well, but no, like if the books, like, not the universe, but if the books exist in that universe, like people are probably thinking, oh, that's probably a real thing, like.
Mm-hmm. They're probably like, that's insane. Who would have guessed such things? But no, Shazam is shockingly an okay film. I think it's too cringy because it's all about like that era of like teenagers where it, like tries to be like a funny kids teenager film, but it gets like real cringy at points because of it. Otherwise, I feel like this is also one of those movies. All the good parts were in the trailers, like when they're doing like the power segments of like figuring out his powers. Like you saw this stuff in the trailer. Also, the villain, a little weak, but normal superhero villain problems. Otherwise, I watched The Departed. I still enjoy that film quite a bit. I understand arguments for why it could be a weaker Scorsese film, but I still think it's a really good film. Also, whenever you put like Jack Nicholson in a film, I expect good things, so. Why do I feel like, AJ, you hate The Departed?
I don't know, because I actually like it.
Okay, it feels like one of those films, like, the entire time I'm like, I could see I could see you just be like, well, there's these plot holes in this film.
Oh, there's definitely holes, but...
Like, there were holes in this film. Like, you're never quite sure who anyone quite works for.
I don't have a problem with that. Because that's just concentration.
Or I like the whole thing of how the therapist just fucks everybody. Like, of course she does. Of course she's just a plot device to be like for everybody. Or, you know, my ultimate question is, do you know the opening of The Departed where you have Jack Nicholson meets a young Matt Damon and like when they're at the store and they get Matt Damon all of the groceries? Yep. Does Jack Nicholson pay the grocer, or does he just threaten the grocer?
I have a feeling he just threatens.
He just goes, give him all the stuff?
Probably.
Interesting.
So, I don't know if you saw this story or not. Ukes is no longer developing the WWE games.
Like as in
Ukes,
who?
the company that's been doing it forever.
I thought 2K did it.
2K's the publisher. Yeah,
Is Ukes the developer? That shows my lack of knowledge of. Because 20 was announced, and that has Becky Lynch and Roman Reigns on the cover.
But
who's the new developer?
Visual Concepts is taking over full time.
That is an interesting choice of a team, because I picture them more as like the art house in 2K, less as a full blown.
Visual
developer.
Concepts has been working on the WWE games now.
But my understanding was always they were mainly the art teams of most things. Anything they touched, I understood them as the art powerhouse. Comparatively to like a lead studio.
They have a pretty good pedigree. Like they did NFL 2K. They've helped on NBA 2K. They've helped on the WWE games.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, the game that Visual Concepts came in on, definitely you could notice a difference. So, the weird thing is this comes off of the announcement from Ukes like 6 months ago that they're developing an internal wrestling game to kind of like compete with each other.
That's gonna be very interesting.
Like I have a feeling it was just okay, whoever's is best, that's gonna become the WWE game. But yeah, this could lead to, I mean, there's only 2 other promotions that are big enough for a video game.
You know,
and one of them's already tied into one, so
that means we're gonna see an AEW game.
Well, you have to imagine they're thinking about it because Kenny Omega's
Kenny
Omega's moves are Street Fighter moves.
But here's the ultimate question, right? Chris Jericho, can he be in the AEW game? Because he's usually in the WWE games.
He owns his likeness, doesn't he? So.
But the question becomes then, because basically he's been in most WWE games. So then I don't know if he does from a video game, or he might have, for all we know, sold his likeness, and that's really interesting because he's very much one of the faces of AEW right now.
I have a feeling if he sold his likeness, he wouldn't be wrestling as Chris Jericho in AEW.
Do you not think, though, a video game like this might be different?
No, because it's TV licensing and pay-per-view licensing. Which, if he had sold the likeness, we would hear more about WWE being involved in the AEW. Because if his likeness was licensed, if he had sold it to WWE, they wouldn't have let him do, the Moxley spots. Or they wouldn't have let him do, take your pick on stuff that he's done in AEW. Granted, it's only been a couple of shows, so it hasn't been a lot, but...
But he's very quickly, up there like Kenny Omega, and, if I said, who are people that people might know when they see AEW, I think Chris Jericho is one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine that Kenny's pushing for one.
Because for sure... Because what you do is, instead of full-blown publishing the thing, you just go, which team do we trust doing it? Hi, here's our likeness before we went back into royalties. Have a good day. You might do some level of that, or just be like, hey, pay us X money and we do whatever you want with the sucker.
Yeah.
And it's probably a low-cost, low-risk thing on the side of the company.
Well, it kind of depends.
You know, it'd be real cool. What was that 2D wrestling
Fire
game that
Pro.
came out
That's
last
who
year?
New Japan's with.
Oh fuck. You know what I was about to say. Could you imagine a Fire Bro like you do AEW cross New Japan?
That would never happen.
You could let me dream, can't you?
New Japan would never let that happen. I can tell you that right now.
Which is interesting because I don't know if AEW thinks that big in Japan where New Japan thinks. No,
that. New Japan won't deal with them because of the way that everybody left.
Okay, because I was about to say, 'cause in my head, I don't think of them as like direct threats to each other just because New Japan is such a different thing.
No, they don't see
And
them
a
as a
different
threat.
audience.
They see them as, like, yeah.
Backstabbing.
Hold on, I gotta check this out. So I'm on Twitch because they've always had,
The live streaming
no,
AEW
they've
stuff.
had the Twitch Prime loot for the Madden Ultimate Team for the past couple of years.
Okay.
So, I saw something on Twitter about it, so I just decided to hop in and claim it. And I've had it open since we started the show. GTA 5 currently has 127,000 viewers.
God.
Do you want to know why?
Wasn't there something they
Well,
just
they did the
with
casino update, but
something? Right, but I thought there's something new they just did.
Mhm.
Okay, why?
Do you know Summit? Yeah,
Is he a streamer?
he's up there
Okay.
with he was up there with Ninja. Like, he and Ninja were the two biggest guys on Twitch.
Well, now Ninja's not on Twitch.
So, can I want to view his. Okay, so Summit has just under 4 million followers on Twitch,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot. Like, no denying, that's a lot of followers.
Oh yeah, that is a lot of.
There are currently 22,000 people watching him play GTA. And he's currently not even on camera. And it's just his idle camera. He's playing one of those role-playing servers. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. There are quite a few people just watching Summit do that. Let's see.
Just existing.
There were a couple others that were like Vader, never heard of him before. He's got 10,000. Yeah, there's a lot of the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 7 of the top 10 are all playing the no pixel role playing server. So either they're all in the same server or there's multiple instances going on. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing that. Fortnite is a monster as always. It's currently got 158,000. What do you think Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege currently has?
Would you? 95.
1,000? No.
Yeah. Oh. Higher or lower?
Lower. It has half of Apex. Mm-hmm.
Really? Ooh. I almost assumed that it might have more legs on it for some reason.
Also, this is thrown off because the currently the top watched stream under the Rainbow Six Siege tag is a GTA stream. So if we take that out, currently Siege has approximately 11,000 viewers.
Ooh. That's actually a lot lower than you'd think.
So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so Fortnite's at 160, GTA's at 123, Just Chatting's at 95, Hearthstone's at 70, League is at 65, and Teamfight Tactics is at 63 and a half.
So I've got to ask, what has happened to League to the point where I feel like literally no one talks about it
Everybody's talking
anymore?
about Teamfight Tactics.
But it's kind of like Dota 2 also. Like, no one talks about these things.
Also, Dota 2 is the 7th watch stream on Twitch.
Okay, I'm not saying it's not popular, but you guys saying like there's no level of like they just exist now. At least like Fortnite, I feel like we still actively hear about things. GTA, you still actively hear about things. Even Hearthstone, I still actively hear about things. Like MOBAs, I feel like they aren't gaining new people anymore. They're just there and they're just existing.
League currently has 65,000 viewers. Dota 2 has 36,000.
Right, but you think about like forever, those things were the game.
Just the disparity though between Teamfight Tactics has more viewers than Dota 2.
But Dota 2 always was the odd child.
Dota 2 is more of a
also
North American MOBA, whereas League I think is more popular in Asia.
Also, Dota 2 is the most complicated of the mainstream MOBAs. So of the big three, Dota 2 is the hardest one to understand.
League and what?
Heroes of Storm.
No.
Heroes of Storm would be the easiest, League would be the middle one, and then Dota 2 the hardest.
Yeah. Who knows?
But it's just fascinating to me how much they're just gone, like in the public sector.
Well, and it doesn't look like they split off the Dota Underlords is spun off. Okay. I was gonna say it didn't look like they had spun off the auto chess for that. Heroes of the Storm has 2,000 viewers.
But also, that game, I've heard, like, things, even in Blizzard, where they're like, this thing's just dying.
Alright, I've got to tune into this because iRacing is currently doing their eNASCAR. Which, by the way, the eNASCAR in iRacing looks amazing. Like, iRacing has an incredible graphics package. Also, it's titled wrong. Because I thought they were racing at Michigan, but they're racing at Pocono. But yeah, I watched. They did the. They actually broadcast the iRacing eNASCAR All Star Race on NBC Sports, which was kind of cool.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing we need to talk about. You were watching Overwatch League on TV the other day. And can we talk about the channel it was on?
The channel it was on wasn't surprising to me.
It wasn't surprising that Disney XD hosted.
No, because you figure like
esports.
Disney XD is like the preteen focused Disney Channel, right? So
okay.
I mean.
And then what's the teenage focused channel? Cartoon Network?
Well, Cartoon Network isn't that big anymore, so...
I know, but I'm trying to think, because it literally goes from, like, child as Disney Channel to...
Preteen of... XD, and then it's kind of like... I don't know, you kind of choose, like, what you're into at that point, and...
Go on with your life.
Also, the cool thing is... Like, a lot of these guys, if they race... So, NASCAR drivers have their own teams in this series. Mm-hmm. Or, like, the... like, for example, I think Chip Ganassi Racing...
Chip Ganassi?
Racing, who are exceptionally successful in any series that they race in, it seems like. They've got a team in this. And so they actually use the liveries of their NASCARs. Yeah.
Really?
So, like, some of these guys have liveries that are, like, custom to them because, like, they're on an esports team or they're independent or something like that. So they actually run sponsors on the cars. But other guys are just driving like the guy in this series that races the number 17. It's one of Ricky Stenhouse's liveries. It's his third livery. Like, and it's the team that owns the Stenhouse car. Like, it's not, just somebody chose the number 17 and decided to use that livery. It's kind of cool that way. But yeah, if I was ever gonna get into esports, it'd probably be iRacing. Yeah.
Really?
Like, if I was ever gonna try and compete, it would be an iRacing, or Project Cars maybe. But
I could see you getting into Project Cars like that.
yeah, it's cool.
I could see that.
I didn't. Speaking of watching Overwatch, though, I didn't like the presentation.
Why though? Because I've heard the thing with Overwatch is it has a lot of money.
Well, like the actual when it was on was fine, but like it was taking a commercial break every like minute. It felt like. They weren't. They didn't really go back and replay the round to watch and see where things changed and like why it went the way it did. It was just like, oh hey, the round's over, commercial. Then
so it feels like the commentators felt
well no, I have a feeling they cut it up. Like the commentators weren't throwing to commercial because I think that stuff is just it's broadcast on Twitch, right? So it's like there's no commercial breaks. Right, so they they don't have to worry about that. It was just like they were trying to cram every commercial they could, and it was all the exact same thing. It was just the lineup for Disney XD. Like over and over again. There were I think maybe 1 or 2 products that were actually advertised.
Do you remember the era where that was Disney's rule was they would only do commercials for Disney stuff?
Disney no, because I didn't really watch a lot of Disney Channel.
So that was a thing like in the 2000s. Like that was Disney Channel's rule was it was exclusively like Disney World commercials, Disney show commercials, Disney movie commercials. And that's it. They refused to run other outside advertising.
That's interesting.
Don't get me wrong. They still advertised Disney World every other commercial, but like it was very fascinating. Because that was the era where straight it would be. That's why Disney Channel was like the safe channel because like you knew there'd be no sketchy commercials for your kids.
Yeah.
Also, I think that's back when every cable provider was paying a pretty penny to keep it on their thing. That's why they could afford to do that.
ESPN is still the most expensive channel on cable.
Also Disney.
It's not even close.
No, as in they're owned by Disney.
Yeah. I thought you meant like also Disney as in...
Oh, no. No. Probably some... I bet you there's stuff like... I bet you like...
no, it's like the sports channels are far and away the most expensive.
And then... But I'm saying besides sports, then what do you got? Probably AV and FX? Probably up there?
I have to imagine that FX is higher than A&E.
But I'm trying to think like where are the number one shows right now? They both have like big shows on them and consistently do.
Well, but that wouldn't
watch it's something dumb like History Channel up there.
That wouldn't necessarily drive channel cost up if you had number ones. That drives advertiser cost up.
It depends though how much leverage you have though. But the thing is though you have enough of them. It's like A&E. I feel like probably has a decent leverage.
No, because like think about it, right? Because A&E is Viacom, I think.
I want to say yes. We'll pretend it's yes.
Viacom handles the cost. So, if you're cable package is $50.
A&E is owned by. No, it's
Disney?
not. Who do you think
Disney.
owns A&E? Yes.
Well, they may have been owned by Fox.
I'm looking at no. Disney Media owns half of them, and Hearst Communications owns the other half, who's just a private equity firm. And they just own part of ESPN. Like they have just figures and everything. Disney has basic controlling rights of A&E, which is also history, by the way. Never mind. And
Hey, you didn't know
Lifetime.
all the stuff that Disney owns.
I didn't realize Disney owned A&E. I'm gonna be honest.
I didn't know
here.
about A&E, but I knew
History.
that they owned like History and Discovery.
I've definitely heard history. I did not know A&E. That one is the one that I'm like, what?
They own History, TLC, Discovery, Science.
Does that mean so? Disney promised that everything they own is gonna be on Disney Plus. Does that mean we're gonna get A&E stuff on Disney Plus?
Probably not. That will be sent to Hulu. Because did you see that they announced that they're going to do a, what is it, like 16 a month for Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, and Hulu?
And who? That's actually not a bad deal if you care about that stuff. That's the cost of Netflix. To put in perspective, you could be like, just to fuck with Netflix, they could just lower it a buck or two and go, fuck you.
Well, that's Hulu with ads. And I will say, though, the ESPN Plus, that's a pretty big deal. Because that's like $6 a month already.
Oh. And also, I still think I think Disney Plus's base price of $6 a month is a great fucking
And
price.
plus, if they're all $6 a month, that's $18. So you're saving a couple bucks a month.
Mm-hmm. But you know what I'm saying though, like just the idea of just Disney Plus with everything they directly own from you think of Disney and Fox, that's actually objectively a great cost considering how much stuff they own. And this is sure if you have a family, there's something in there for everyone in the family. At any
Yeah, I have
time.
to imagine that it's like it's only going to be movies and TV shows, either movies that they own or TV shows that aired on Disney Channel.
They
Or
said Fox
Disney
stuff is
XD.
included. They said
For
Fox
TV?
is included though. Like they said Family Guy's up there. Yes, they said Family Guy. They started giving a list of like, no, it's every sucker thing. It gets weird though, because it's stuff like Friends, even though it aired on, you get weird stuff like those, or Seinfeld that are like might have aired on stuff, but it's stuff that like those things actually own.
I wonder if they're like, are they saying that with Hulu in mind?
Let me visit you. When this was pre them announcing anything doing with Hulu, even though they owned it, so I'm assuming not, but we'll find out.
Yeah. Well, that gives them an out of like, oh, well, it's not on Disney Plus, it's on Hulu. So add, $9 a month to your subscription, and you can get everything.
Which the whole idea, though, even if it's just Disney and Disney Plus, for the sake of this argument, right? You could still wipe the floor with Netflix a good chunk of it, because how many Netflix people who like, well, I kind of like having Marvel movies on Netflix and a couple other things. You could just go, well, here's everything Disney owns, and it might be worth it.
Yeah.
I think Disney Plus is going to be a fresh new competitor in this space of streaming.
I almost wonder though if, like, think about the stuff that you always hear of, like the top watched stuff on Netflix.
So Friends,
The
How
Office,
I Met Your Mother.
all those sitcoms are all going to be off Netflix within a year.
Aren't they going to like the Fox service too, or whatever the hell that is? Or NBC, the NBC service? I don't know, they're going somewhere.
Yeah, Office is going to NBC.
Friends would also be
Yeah.
NBC. What's Seinfeld? Because Hulu has the rights right now, but I don't know if they're keeping them.
Seinfeld is probably going wherever he can get money. He does not care.
But I don't know who owns it.
I think it's
I think
Jerry
it's still the
Seinfeld
channel.
and
I thought the channel still owned them and they just get healthy back-end deals on it.
I don't know.
That was my understanding of Seinfeld, was they just have the most insane contracts in the world, but at the end of the day, it's still the channel who owns it. Seinfeld, the distributor is Sony Pictures Television.
So they would be the ones that own it. So it would go to the Sony service.
Which we don't know of right now of any actual...
So they're probably going to stick on Hulu.
For right now, at least. Because I don't think Sony owns enough to make it worth it for them to actually make a thing.
No, I feel like if you're going to do a Sony service, it has to be a Sony media service.
And also, they already have one of those, which no one uses.
What's that?
So, because if you could totally tie it to View and put a Sony channel.
Oh. Talking about View. Apparently View's doing alright. Like, it's not doing gangbusters,
Really?
but it's doing alright.
Mm-hmm.
Which doesn't surprise me, because think about all the people that are in, like, apartments or something like that and don't want to pay the absolutely outrageous price for the cable bundle. So they just get the internet, and then, they'll get View or Hulu or something like that.
This is why I said, this is an actual argument I don't understand, okay? So cable, the whole reason that people like cord cutting is because cable costs an absurd amount of money. And so people are now complaining that there's so many streaming services that it's costing the same as cable. And in my head I'm like, no, you idiots. The whole idea of the streaming services were cable I can't pick and choose, streaming services I can. Or I could be like, I want Hulu and Netflix this month. Now this month I want Netflix and Disney. And this month I want this and this. So I go, I don't understand how people are so upset from that in comparison to being like, it's the same as cable, when no, you can't, because cable, you're either paying $60 or you're not.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are just blind and ignorant is the best way to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
So they hear of a streaming service and they assume that they have to sign up to it, which they kind of do, because like at first with Netflix it was like everything's there, so you could go straight from an episode of The Office to an episode of Friends to watching an episode of Family Guy to watching take your pick on a movie. So that was nice. Now, in order for somebody to do that, it's okay, we need Netflix and Hulu and CBS All Access and the NBC one and Disney. Like, in order for you to get to where Netflix was originally, yeah, you have to sign up to every service.
But like the actual logistics of it is just sign up for the one you want to watch, and then like just don't keep them rolling. The stuff doesn't go away, is what I don't understand. Especially as it starts to normalize to the point where everything's owned on their actual things. They're not actually back-end deals anymore, which should normalize. I'm not going to keep gaining and losing stuff.
Yeah.
But who knows? I'm just crazy. So AJ, we have to talk about it. So the ESA are a complete bunch of idiots.
Well, in this topic you covered in your...
Oh yeah, we covered it in a more legal sense, which we paired at the end of this episode. I had a nice interview with my own friend Ross, who's a lawyer and does a lot of the stuff. But in simple terms for us, the ESA leaked about 2,000 journalists' information who went to E3 last year. So all of them are now scared of getting doxxed, and a bunch of them have received death
they
threats.
just straight up doxed these people.
And now literally like a bunch of them are like signing on to like class action lawsuits and like being doxxed. Like actually like getting threats and stuff.
I mean, I guess it was only a matter of time until something like this happened. It's kind of a bummer that it did happen. But I hate to say it, I'm not surprised.
It's still one of those things. I'm not saying I'm not surprised, but you do understand how, like, just, it's very interesting to me of, like, what's going to happen at the ESA, especially as we keep having these, like, does E3 matter discussions? Like, now empty ESA's coffers and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I have a feeling that, to put it bluntly, I don't think E3 is going to happen next year.
See, I still think it does. I don't know if it went that quickly.
Or if it does happen, it's going to be, like, very, very pared down. Because think about it, right? Like, all of these journalists, these 2,000 plus journalists, had their info doxed by the ESA, who run E3. And apparently this list has actually been out for a while. It's just been picked up in the past couple months. But, I mean, you think about it, like, they're thinking, I mean, if I'm a journalist, I'm going, there's no way in hell I'm going back to E3. Even if E3 happens, I think you have to look at it as, if it does happen, it's probably going to be either really pared down, or the coverage is going to be a lot of, you know, watching press releases and that's it. Like, we're not going to get these journos writing stories because they're not going to go. I don't blame them.
See, and I feel like, to be honest here, I feel like it's not going to matter until we get to that point. I could be wrong, but I feel like it's just going to be one of those things where it kind of normals out by then, or they're going to figure out some level to make it normal out.
Well, I also wonder that if this lawsuit's still going on...
Oh yeah, that's going to be interesting conflict of interest.
Suddenly are people going to be going, well, you know, do we go because it's E3 and, like, we kind of have to? Or do we stay home or do, like, a giant bomb? I'm curious if their stuff got dumped.
They said every single one who's registered as a journalist. So I don't know. I feel like they're probably registered as journalists, but like people registered as influencers.
I think they were registered as exhibitors because of GameSpot.
Oh yeah, so they might be safe because of that.
Then. Which that would really suck, especially since Jeff just had Jeff and his wife just had a kid. You know, so. Will people go more towards that, where they talk over the press conference and
not show up? But here's the thing, though. Then at that point, then E3 still happens because it turns into a pure gamer show by necessity.
Yeah. I mean, influencers will always...
show up. Because, again, these are people who weren't affected.
Well, even if they were affected, they wouldn't care. Because the people that are influencers are in it just for the money. They have no journalistic integrity or, striving to get the whole story out there and the whole truth. They just want to get what they can, get their video, and get out of there. You know, they don't care. So, of course they're going to show up to E3. Why wouldn't they? So, yeah, and obviously you guys get more in depth into the legality of,
Here's a good like a preview for that entire interview. You guys can go listen to it in a few minutes. Everything legally is a very gray subject. Just some things are less gray than other things. But the one thing he was, as a lawyer, always very like, well, I'm not giving actual legal advice, but I'm kind of like, like you know what I'm saying, like the disclaimer of legal advice there, without knowing individuals. He goes, but this is the one case he goes, I'm basically guaranteeing there's going to be a class action lawsuit.
Yeah.
Now here's an open question: how much do you think they could pay out for something like that?
I would look towards, well, I don't think there's any way they could do it, but the most recent doxing was the Equifax.
And that thing was absurd. The Equifax affected so many more people, and it's also Equifax. Ooh, that's a good question. I think Equifax is still a bigger deal in the sense of what was leaked.
Well, it was, but what I'm saying is like that would be kind of like obviously more was leaked, but that's the
more,
last,
I'd almost say more.
Yeah, that's the last doxing that happened. So, you know, maybe look at that as like that's probably your ceiling in terms of payout per person.
Yeah, and that payout was either 135 or coverage, or if you were affected, it was like up to 20 grand. It was some weird, stuff.
So, I mean, I have a feeling that the people that are going to be representing these journalists are going to tell them, hey, I hate to say it, but let's just take it as far as we can, because
and probably get a couple grand a pop or whatever and some level of protection if you're giant. As my guess is what's going to come out to.
Well, it'll probably be the thing. If it is, if it's a class action, you can't treat anyone differently.
Right, and that's the problem. Is because I almost think realistically is like you should be, just because of the nature of some journalists are going to be more targeted than others.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with you there, but, you know, if they want to handle it that way, then it would be individual lawsuits. You know, they would advise them to do that and not a class action.
Tag onto it.
Because the idea of a class action is it's kind of the, you know, the mean of what they feel, you know, it's worth. Because obviously people are going to be more affected, and some people are probably like, there's probably some journalists on that list that are like, for the, you know, Jackson City newspaper in Iowa or something like that, you know. A paper that probably has 500 readers. You know what I mean? Like, that's, you know, there's probably quite a few people on that list that are small-time reporters that, you know, might get a couple letters or something like that, or a couple phone calls, but, you know, it's not going to be like the people from Waypoint or Kotaku or Polygon. Yeah.
It's just going to be a very fascinating thing to, I think, watch this continue.
Worst case scenario of this is we watch the ESA implode, and
so here's the other thing on this one, which I think is going to be fascinating, is this is at the same time that video games are somebody's under scrutiny with this gun stuff happening with the shootings, and ESA is also the Washington lobbying body, and like it or not, money runs a lot of politics. So take the money that video games use to defend themselves out of the equation and watch the scapegoat of video games become a lot worse.
I will say that, like, we don't need to get into this, but using video games as the scapegoat for violence is probably the worst thing that you could do.
But you get what I'm saying, though, when I say is, if they're the, relatively speaking, the watch organization that somewhat defends the industry, and now you take their entire cash flow and have to put it into this lawsuit, I'm curious what's going to happen.
I'm also...
Because you could see where that could implode real quickly.
I'm also curious to see, like, what would the response be to government regulation? Because it's... it's really only been, like...
They can't, though, I thought. The Supreme Court said it was freedom of speech.
well, but like for regulating the gambling practices and stuff like that, um,
Mm-hmm.
the ESA has kind of been like, oh well, we'll handle that. We'll handle that. You know, we'll take care of it.
Right.
If suddenly the ESA doesn't exist,
Who can
and
say that?
ratings no longer exist because the
Yeah.
ESA runs ratings, so now suddenly, you know,
The government goes, you can't do it anymore,
Yeah.
so we have to.
so I think that's worst case scenario is the ESA implodes and
Which I think actually legitimately might be a more negative than a positive in because of stuff like that.
it could potentially.
I think
lead
what's
to
happened is
unions,
atrocious, needs to be fixed. I don't know if it would though, because stuff like ratings are like the concern. Ratings open the doors for the regulation.
Well,
real
but just
quickly.
once the government has their fingers in it, there's a chance that unions could build up.
I don't know if the risk of government controlling video games is worth what people consider the plus of unions. Like I legitimately don't know on that one at all. Like I think at the moment you do that, and like if that's your give and take, how much are you actually giving control wise away? Like what if you get to the point where the government goes, now we're investing in them now, and it's not like the like let's be honest, it's not gonna be like the Canadian or whatever of like here's just our money pile. It's gonna be like, no, I'm sorry, you can only this many games can be released this month, or whatever kind of stuff, or you're too violent, or stuff like that's gonna start happening,
Yeah. I mean, it would be interesting to
and
see.
that you could see happening quickly. We're gonna do it in a different country in a different test bed, though. Let's do that.
I mean, I think the problem is the U.S. is so unique that you couldn't just go, oh well, we'll test it in New Zealand. Like, just the cultures are completely different, you know. In New Zealand, actually, I think New Zealand is one of the only other countries where you can advertise prescription drugs.
Yes, I'm gonna go with yes.
I think it's
I think you can.
It's like New Zealand and the U.S. are the only countries that you can do that. So there's a little more. I guess there's that common denominator, but like, if you're gonna say, oh well, we're gonna tie, you know, we think that video games are the problem, so they're gonna become government regulated. Well, think about this, right? So the government regulates tobacco in the U.S. That doesn't stop them. Okay, that was a dog. That doesn't stop the government from selling it, right? So, they just collect a tax, and you can be on your merry way. So I could potentially see it being the same thing of where, okay, we'll let this exist, but it's going to be taxed.
Which I again, to me that's such a negative where it's like when we start taxing individual pieces of art for things we don't like or want to control on them, I see that as a very negative thing for society.
I think it's not as bad as you think it would be.
I don't know if the positive is there.
I mean, yeah, I guess, but you know, it's one of those things of where, yes, obviously, art is different than cigarettes and tobacco, but it's also, if we're claiming that, you know, this is so harmful, right? Like, first off, if they're claiming that it's the violence, video games aren't the things to look at, it's TV.
So this is a point I actually made to Ross, which I find fascinating. So, Avengers Endgame now is the biggest movie of all time, right? We don't define that as violent, but we define video games as the problem. Avengers Endgame, the big movie of all time, is about half the world dying.
Yeah, but it's not a violent death.
But the whole point, though, by nature, that is violent. And I think we're just accepting different terms of violence, but they're all violence. So that's why I think the argument of video game violence is not being nuanced enough if you're going to make that argument. And let's be honest, the people in DC making that argument are not being nuanced on it.
I mean, the argument for Infinity War and Endgame being violent and the snap being violent is less of, I guess if you want to define it as violence, it's emotional violence, but that could be anything. Like if you want to claim emotional violence on that, you need to claim emotional violence on like anything, right? Sports. You hear a commentator talk about your team wrong. That's emotional violence. Like you see where that kind of gets into the weeds of that's just a slippery slope.
But my whole point though is video games are just emotional violence also. Like at the end of the day, anything that's not physically happening to you is emotional violence.
Yeah, so
and that's why it's still the same line of emotional violence.
Some people just handle it better than others, so.
Right, but the whole point of that's still emotional violence. If you're gonna go down that road.
Yeah, and in which case, if you want to talk about violence, you have to talk about media in the U.S. as a whole.
So like to me, I think there's an argument to be made of we desensitize people, maybe we shouldn't. That's a valid argument. But I don't think it's the same argument as saying inherently because a thing exists, it makes people violent when no study has shown that to be true ever.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
it just means you react differently to it existing when you see it in real life, but it does not mean you're gonna go pick up the gun and do it because of it.
The only time any video game has affected the way I think was when Sleeping Dogs came out. It was like.
And you realize that they drove a wrong side of the road?
Like I got it in the summer or something like that. And so like I didn't have to drive anywhere for a couple days. So I was just playing Sleeping Dogs. And it took me about 100 feet to realize that I was suddenly driving on the left side of the road.
Please tell me you realized that when you saw it.
No, it was...
You're like, oh, shit.
I mean, you know the street that my neighborhood's on. It's pretty dead, so... I just quickly switched over to the right lane, and that was it. Like, that's the only time it's ever happened to me.
I can't believe my joke is actually legit.
Yeah.
God damn it. Okay. Well, AJ, that's all the notes I had for this show. Do you have anything else you want to talk about before we jump to the movie club for the month? Okay. Okay, we have to decide movie club for this month. We have both an old movie and a new movie. Where would you like to begin?
Let's go old movie.
Okay. What are you feeling for a theme this month? It is August. This is the dead of summer. Nothing good is coming out, as we will see. Are you feeling like an action, a drama, a comedy?
Well, I can tell you the movie I'm going to see the week that we're recording this.
Okay.
Just out of sheer, I guess, curiosity.
I'm terrified.
It's just Hobbs and Shaw, so...
But did that come out in August?
Yeah, it came out last week. It came out the 2nd.
Oh, it did. But would that be you? But that to me, that'd be the
yeah.
new
No,
movie
I'm
thing.
just saying I'm gonna go see that. Less out of I want to go see it, and more out of I'm curious about it.
Okay.
So.
Interesting. What is a good August film? Hear me out. Okay. Terminator 2.
I was gonna say Remember the Titans because I think it actually takes place in August. At least the beginning does.
Remember the Titans. Movie, not TV show, I assume. Yeah. Which I didn't know there was a TV show, and I Googled that either.
Remember the Titans is a surprisingly good movie.
There we go. Yeah, that's weird. Remember the
It
Titan,
was like 2000 or something
a
like that.
Jerry Bruckheimer film? Yeah.
It's
Denzel
got
Washington.
Denzel. It's got Cuba Gooding Jr. It's got what else has it got? There's a couple of the big names in it.
So don't worry, it is owned by Disney if anyone was concerned about that.
I'm kind of curious to see how far the U.S. government lets Disney go.
Considering I expected a bigger fight for that merger with Fox, I legitimately did.
So, do you think the antitrust laws are kind of defunct at this point? Like,
Oh, I also think the antitrust laws, I disagree with, but I at least understand the logistical reason for them in industries where it's a requirement to function. So to me, that would be like when you had it in like in electricity, so like in power supply stuff, in water supply, in communications, in those kind of things. Where I still fundamentally disagree with them, I at least understand some level of legitimacy to the argument of them. At the same time, I don't understand the argument for them in the entertainment
yeah, they
industry.
shouldn't exist in the entertainment. They should exist in.
And that's why, which I don't know if which I am way less like they for sure should exist in this, but I at least like I legitimately think that argument is valid and there is a point maybe you could have to that one, but like in entertainment, I don't understand it.
Oh, well, think about this, right? Like, the only. Okay, first off, the only way that we're going to get monopolized, which is effectively a government run power, water, and telecom company, is if we get a super, super Democrat in. And
But at this point, we do have those with those companies, basically. The government sets the rates on those companies and tell who can and cannot exist in the areas.
that's more of local governments. So you would have to tackle local governments
But the
before
whole-
you could tackle federal governments, but yeah.
But the whole point is, though, like, we basically have accepted those
Yep.
do exist. Like, relatively few areas actually have competition on your electric, water, or sewer stuff,
Yeah.
if any.
Usually because it's run by the city, but yeah.
But that's my whole no, like in Illinois, we had ComEd. ComEd was technically a private company.
Yeah. Well, like,
But the local government was like, here is your rate, have a good day.
for where I live, the sewer and water is city. The city runs it. The VPW runs it. Our gas and electric are from two different companies.
But the whole point, though, I bet you the city has a major influence on the rate if they don't control it outright.
For
those
gas and
products.
electric?
Yeah.
Gas, no. Electric, maybe. First off, the electric company that supplies us is effectively a monopoly in Michigan. I think it's got 90% of the customer base.
I have Cox Communication for like internet and stuff down here, and it's basically like if you're in the southeast, you have Cox.
Yeah. Yeah, because Spectrum didn't really make it to Florida, which is really weird.
And Comcast is like non-existent, at least around here. I've heard more Southern Florida, I think, exists more, but like
Yeah,
right
Central
here it
and
does
Southern
not.
Florida is Comcast.
But yeah, so we have to come up with our new movie. I have a pitch for a new movie I think you might like.
Okay.
How do you feel about Good Boys?
Oh, I saw the trailer for that. That looks really stupid.
It looks like super bad. It's gonna be super bad.
No, it's not. It's gonna be super bad.
Okay, so the options I saw were Good Boys was obviously my first choice, or my other option was Angel Has Fallen.
Okay, I'm just gonna say this up front. I could have sworn I've already seen Angels Fallen.
No, you have seen Olympus Has Falling. That was like 2 years ago.
Like The shot from the trailer of
The shot of the drones is so
well,
fucking
no,
cool.
where they're on the lake and that, I've seen that. I've seen that scene.
Watch it. They just
I don't
reuse
know.
it.
That's the thing. Like, I've seen that scene. I know that scene. So, I don't know where I saw it. I could have sworn it was in a movie theater.
Yeah, the trailer
No.
for the movie.
Like, that scene specifically stands out. I remember that entire scene.
Interesting. So which would you prefer then? Good Boys or Angel Has Fallen? Unless you have a better
Let's
suggestion.
go Angel Has Fallen.
Okay. Angel Has Fallen will release on August 23rd, 2019. So expect the podcast the week after, as we're doing the Friday releases now, consistently. And our old movie is Remember the Titans, a Jerry Bruckheimer production.
Yep.
Stay tuned at the end of the show, because we're going to have 2 interviews lined up at the end of the show with actually 2 of my friends I both did them with. This is going to be an extra long special podcast for everyone. First up, we will have my friend Natasha, who does community management stuff and runs the local Pokemon Go community in Chicago. And after that, we will have the extra long interview with my good friend Ross, who is a lawyer, is the chair of IJ Chicago, co-chairs the interactive something in the Bar Association of Chicago, and is a co-chair on the interactive museum of something, another video game museum out of Chicago. So that was a fun discussion with him. Remember, subscribe to the show on iTunes, Anchor, podcast services around the globe. You can follow me on Twitter at Mikey_Maroney. You can follow AJ at One Man Electric Company on Twitter. And you can find the show at the SWW Show. I'm sorry, AJ, was that a problem with something there?
Nope.
Okay, perfect, okay. I'm really hoping that, like, I should just do this one day, is just, like, go through and just get every single Twitter handle I say is yours and just make fake yous.
Go for it.
I think it'd be pretty
forever.
funny. That would take forever. But yeah. We'll catch you guys.
I'm going to
next time.
figure out where I've seen that scene from. Angel Has Fallen.
God damn it. And that will be a good cliffhanger for next time, folks. We'll see you next time. Goodbye. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special interview here on the SWW Show. I'm Mike, and I have here with me today someone that is not AJ. I know we're all really excited. He's gone again. Sadly, not for good. We keep trying. He keeps finding his way back to the recording studio. So, could you please tell me what your name is and what is it that we're here to talk about today?
Hi guys, my name is Natasha Gar, and we're here talking about Pokemon Go in Chicago.
That's right. We're talking about my ye old windy city. So, I've known Natasha now for a little bit, and the thing I really wanted to bring on the show to talk about today is she does a lot of community management stuff, kind of like in the Chicago area, referring to like Pokemon Go, and kind of like starts relating to those communities. And I thought it was a very interesting discussion we could have of like the idea of like community management in this more abstract sense, and how like this groups like around Pokemon Go, I feel like has quickly turned into this weird, I don't want to say cult, but it's this idea of this game that like has brought people together in a bigger way. But from the outside, you're like, the hell are they all doing?
You're not wrong. We're just like a whole army of people running around Chicago, like on the streets, looking down at our phones, not paying attention to anything around us.
But it's really like interesting, because like when you listen to people talk about it, it's like you always get the 2 stories of like, I found this really rare Pokemon, or it's, yeah, and a bunch of us just go hang out after, and you're like, I don't understand like where like this kind of like social shenanigans just comes from in this game that does not inherently like make the shenanigans part of it. It just happens outside of the game.
Yeah, no, like it's this crazy big thing that everyone thought just had died off and we're all going crazy at it. We still shout when we all catch legendary Pokemon or find like rare shiny spawns. Like, we go absolutely nuts whenever we find things. We're always like high-fiving. Like, if you ever seen Drake and Josh, we do like the hug me brother kind of thing. It's like, we're totally like really super enthusiastic about everything that we're doing. So.
Yeah, so I feel to start this then as we start the discussion, can you kind of talk about like what got you into Pokemon Go? I assume it's because you're a major Pokemon fan, but obviously you've taken Pokemon Go like beyond just being like, I enjoy Pokemon.
Oh my gosh. So I've been a Pokemon fan ever since I was a young little kid. Like, it's always been my thing. My first Pokemon game was Pokemon Sapphire, and then I started out with the Pokemon cards in the anime. And then when I found out Pokemon Go was coming out, of course I went like absolutely crazy. I was like, wait, I can now finally have my dream of catching Pokemon in the real world on the streets of Chicago or like anywhere in the world. What? And I was trying to organize all of these like road trips with friends because everything's region locked, of course. And it was just insane. Like, everyone would meet up and go hang out just to play this game. So like, it just made my obsession with Pokemon even stronger. And Pokemon Go is definitely one of my top like obsessions right now. So
I do appreciate someone else who like started on the same gen of Pokemon as me. So like it's like the issues you talked to, I feel like Pokemon fans half the time they're like, well, you see, if you started past Silver, you don't understand what Pokemon is. And they have like the smug look on their face.
Ooh, they don't know. Like, Pokemon Sapphire is my favorite game because I started on it, and then like obviously Torchic is like OP for me. So I don't think it's bad that you started in Sapphire because you're not alone on this.
First off, Blaziken is actually OP. That is 100% a factual statement, and there are crazy people out there who try to explain to me that Typhlosion is the best fire starter, and I just stare at them like they're actually crazy people.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who does that. I also do that. I'm just like, what are you talking about? Blaziken's OP. Have you not even seen Mega Blaziken? What?
Mega Blaziken literally takes the idea. See, the thing is though, that was in the games they went, here you go, here's a speed boost Blaziken. You don't even need Mega, you're just like, have a good day.
I'm so bad. Like, you're making me remember that I usually, whenever I have like my Blaziken as like my starter, which is usually like any game that involves a Blaziken in it. Oh my god, I grind so hard and go so crazy and I just always end up using Blaziken, and then I don't even level up my other Pokemon. Like, it was getting so bad that I was happy they added the XP share for your entire team because I kept forgetting to like, give them like new moves and stuff. Oh my gosh, it was so OP.
See, I think we all understood that though. We're all like, my Blaziken is level 65. Don't knock him out. My next Pokemon's level 10.
That's exactly what happened. Like, I was obsessed with Pokemon Sapphire, and of course I bought another one in my adult life. But my younger self's game, like, I raised my Blaziken up until level 99, and my whole party is like level 40. I was just like, whoa. Whoops.
Like, that is, yeah. But, so kind of jumping back to less mainline Pokemon Go too. So you started playing Pokemon Go a ton, you're saying. So what made you kind of, like, start leading this idea of, like, start just being part of the community, like, trying to, like, lead and organize community events around Pokemon Go?
Yeah, so basically, it was the fact that my friends no longer wanted to play the game and go out and explore with me, so I was always playing by myself. I started a Pokemon group in Chicago when it first came out called Poke Unite, where it was just like my friends from like school when I was in college, and like other friends from around like different states. just like hanging out, talking about Pokemon Go, and be super excited about catches. But then that group slowly died out. And then my friends, like in my group chats, didn't really want to play anymore, and they weren't getting into the game anymore. So I was like, this is lame. I want to start doing events because I was never able to go to the events that were originally being hosted just because they fell at bad times or they were during the week or whatever. So, and I was working and things. So I was like, crap, what am I going to do? And then I took over Pokemon Go Chicago Squad. So, and then I started my very first event for that group, and it was a Moltres Day. And we had over 80 people show up, and I was like, oh my god, I am finally living my dream of playing Pokemon Go with a giant group of people. This is awesome. So I was like really happy about that. So that's kind of how it started, all just because my friends didn't want to play with me.
I love how that's part of it. You're like, I'm gonna play this game. I don't care who shows up. So part of it's interesting is like you started with like 80 people, which by any objective measure for your first time trying to organize a thing actually is like a good number for sure. So I'm kind of curious like over time then, because I feel like as watching from the outside, like that group feels like it's growing at a decent pace, and it's like interesting to watch like Chicago be this haven for Pokemon Go, even though like obviously it's because it's a big city, but I feel like more than like other areas, I feel like even outside of it, I always hear of Chicago a lot, because obviously I do like Pokemon Go Fest in Chicago every year and all that stuff.
Right. So, let's see. That was just my first event that I had hosted. So, Go Squad actually we just hit 24,000 members, and now it's continuing to grow. It's a crazy amount of people. There's a lot of like managing those people, and yeah, no, it's insane. I'm just like thinking about it now. Can you repeat the question one more time? Because I just like, whoa.
So kind of like, I was wondering, like, how is it? So like, that's good jump there. How do you manage like those people? And I was thinking about like how Chicago has been this like weird haven for it, even like even disproportionately, even though it's one of the biggest cities, like Chicago gets this attention meter on it because of stuff like Pokemon Go Fest and like dealing with all of that.
Yeah. Okay. So Chicago is actually the best city for Pokemon Go. That's why Pokemon Go Fest is always taking place in Chicago, because Chicago fans are like crazy fanatics about Pokemon Go, and they just like keep going with it. Like personally, for one of my events I have hosted, the most people I've had show up was over 200 people at a Lincoln Park Zoo event. But it's like the community is continuously growing. We're always having new players join our groups. We always have like old players who are like, oh my gosh, I have people to play with now. This is sweet. And they always come out and join us for the events. So Chicago is like a big hub for Pokemon Go because they have heaps and heaps and heaps of Pokemon, like Pokestops. They have heaps of Pokemon, heaps of spawns all throughout the Chicagoland area. Chicago's a huge city, so you never know what neighborhood you're going to find some cool stuff in, because Pokemon spawn in very, very different areas. And then you have gyms everywhere. You have heaps of raid battles. Like, everyone's going after Armored Mewtwo, and they're going to go crazy and go outside again for Rayquaza that just got announced. It's like honestly the best place to be. Like, you even have like water. You have the lake, so you have water Pokemon spawning over there. Like, you have in the sun. I'm gonna say like the sunny areas. I was about to be like the sunlight, but
The sunlight.
the sunlight. You have the sunlight. No, like in more sunny areas, you're probably gonna see more fire Pokemon, and it actually has weather changes depending on the weather it's going on outside, because it follows the Weather Channel app, which is kind of really cool. But sometimes it's a little off and different because it changes every hour for weather conditions. But yeah, like Chicago has everything, and you're gonna experience everything here for that game.
You could experience
It's pretty lit.
everything every season in Chicago in about a 3-day period real easily. So you might as well experience all of the Pokemon is what you're saying.
Exactly. Exactly. I haven't seen any snow yet, luckily, this summer. But there has been so much snow Pokemon popping up in the game. I'm just like, and by that I mean ice Pokemon, and I keep seeing like Abominus Snow and Snorunt, and I know they have like special like lures out right now for that kind of stuff, and like a lure is like when Pokemon get attracted to a particular stop. But sometimes it's not even at those stops. I'm just like, it's like 90 degrees outside. You're gonna melt.
So I'm kind of curious then. So like so Pokemon Go has this tendency to like every I think couple weeks, so to put it, like has these like events. Like right now you have like the Shadow Pokemon out there, or I feel like every 2 days they're like, here's a new type of Pikachu. Are there any of these that kind of like stick with you, especially maybe like or like events you've like organized around them?
Oh, events have stuck with me. There's been so many that have stuck with me. Like we just did the event for the Shadow Pokemon on Saturday because Niantic released this giant global worldwide. I said worldwide or something. They released this event from like only for an hour to defeat Team Rocket and purify Pokemon. So it brought you back to the Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness and Pokemon Coliseum nostalgia vibes, and I was like freaking the fuck out. I was like, oh, what? So you had to capture all these shadow Pokemon, purify them, and complete these like field research tasks, and that was like a really cool thing because I even ran into like in real life Team Rocket grunt because a guy was shooting a YouTube video. I was like, oh, hey, what's up? This is so cool. But I think every single one of my events has been super memorable to me. Like, I've met so many amazing people. I've met so many amazing friends. I met actually some of my best friends from Pokemon Go from running events. Every experience is memorable. Everything is completely different. We always are like battling the weather. Like one crazy thing that I remember was we were all walking backwards in the snow when it was a blizzard outside because we refused not to play because it was community day.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like Chikorita or Totodile. It was one of those at Navy Pier. But yeah, every single event's memorable, and definitely even the first one that I hosted for Moltres Day, I was just so ecstatic to see all these people coming just to capture a legendary bird with me. And we got like people were taking pictures of us and were always like coming up to us and be like, "Are you playing Pokemon Go?" And I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "I told you, give me my $10." That was a conversation this guy was having with his friend, and they bet that we're playing Pokemon Go or not. So,
see, you should have been like, so I get like a little bit of that amount since he won the money. You owed $1 of it. It would have been.
That would have
been much better.
That would have been so much better. Like, totally delayed reactions on my part during that instance. Because, like, when you're, like, out there experiencing this is always me. Like, somebody can just walk up to me and be like, blah, blah, blah. I didn't think about my answer straight away, so I'm just like, oh, yeah, that's what we're doing. And I'm like, oh, I could have come up with something super funny. Darn it.
That's very interesting to me, of, like, this thing of, like, even there's, like, people being like, oh, I think they're playing too, and it goes back to my like original point of like it's very interesting because it's inherently it's not a game. It's a game that wants you to work together, but it's not a game that like told you to form these outside relationships. It's kind of just naturally happened as people kept playing this. Like I remember even like when the game first came out, you have like the joke was you would see these like group of teenagers just in a club. You're like they're all playing Pokemon Go. So there were like 5 of them on their phone, but it looked like they had a purpose, not just they're on their phone for the hell of it.
Oh, yeah, that sounds about right. It's like, still to this day, I still see people on the train playing and stuff. I'm like, yep, you're doing the right thing right now. Oh my gosh.
But it's also interesting because it is such like, mechanically speaking, we're talking about such a simple, relatively game. You go, okay, you get these Pokeballs to either to capture these guys, or you have to go battle, which means you basically tap. And there's strategy behind it, but we're not talking about like, there's nothing like mechanically complex here. It solely just hits like the collector instinct in people, and like the forming of these relationships is like the reason this game kind of thrives still.
Yeah, and they keep releasing very, very cool features. Like they did that like a year ago now. They did the whole send your friend a gift feature, which gives you items and bonus XP and Stardust and like Alolan eggs. There's 7K eggs, but they usually have like a Alolan Pokemon in them from the 7th generation. And then, like, they added in the battle features. They added in trading, finally. They added a really cool mechanic in, finally, where you could swipe for battling. So you kind of, like, more, like, cool attacking features, and then they also just finally increased your bag storage, so you, like in preparation for Gen 5 coming out to the game. So then all the Dex collectors like me are super happy that we don't have to delete our Pokemon right now and turn them into candies, because that just breaks my heart all the time to do that. I'm like, please, I don't want you to be candy. Like, but they keep doing things that help people get even more invested into the game, like especially for those who fell off the bandwagon before. They're just joined back in the game because of the Team Rocket shadow thing that was going on.
So I saw the shadow thing like right as they announced it too, and in my head I was like, they're not literally bringing back like, because in my head it was Gale Darkness is like my reference point. Then I was like, they're not. This can't be the same thing. And I saw that, and they're like, and you get purified Pokemon. I was like, my God.
I know. Like I flipped out. I was like, wait, seriously? We're gonna do this? Okay, I'm on this
Like,
train.
such a weird pull out of nowhere that I would never have thought they would be doing, because like, they didn't tend to do that kind of like changing Pokemon in that extreme of a way that wasn't like in some capacity tied to a game or a promotion.
Yeah, like oddly enough, I was talking about this with my staff earlier for Ghost Squad. We were talking about, oh crap, I just lost my train of thought.
You're talking about how they didn't like usually do this kind of thing?
Yeah, no, like we were talking about this for Ghost Squad stuff, and I'll come back to that because I was like, I got so like, I was thinking about Shadow Pokemon.
But so that's kind of interesting to me. So one of the things that I've always thought about this game. So like, because in my head I always go the collector side. That's kind of like when I play it. That's kind of like what I do. And
yeah,
and I feel like I'm the type of player that they like invite us a lot, like in one swoop. But then like I always feel like we're the type of player that could forget about like, because we during this game a lot, because it's kind of like here's a lot of new Pokemon and stop for 5 months. A lot of new Pokemon and stop for 5 months. And
oh,
because if you think about it, like very much as they go, here is a third of a region or 2/3 of a region, and then a couple weeks later they're like, here's the rest of it, and then you don't hear anything for a bit. So I think
actually,
yeah.
it's kind of interesting that you say that because they also release so many legendary Pokemon and do raids. Like, there's been an X raid for Deoxys going on for a long time right now because they were releasing all of his special forms and whatnot. But like pretty much every month they're like, here's a new legendary Pokemon for you to capture in raid battles. Here's another one really briefly that we're only gonna throw on for this one day that has a chance of being shiny. Here's a brand new community day. Like they're throwing in so many different Pokemon at different times. But I feel like because like there's a whole bunch of character models and stuff like that, they're taking their time, making sure they're all ready to go and they're perfect, and they're releasing each Pokemon from different generations, like in a good like consecutive manner.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
so my joke has always been, to me, my dream version of this game when it came out would have been like, you release like they did with the original 150, and my joke was every week just release 5 Pokemon every Friday and just don't tell us what those Pokemon are, and I'd been this fun kind of like who's coming out this week kind of joke.
I actually would love that. Like it could be like, who's that Pokemon popping up on your game screen, like in the splash screen, and there's like, you have to guess what it is, and then if you're right, I don't know, it could be something cool happening after that. Wait, I got it. It could like, after you guess the right Pokemon, it could spawn right there in front of you and be like, hey, there's 5 new Pokemon today. Go team! And then you have to wait for the next week and do the same quiz again and again.
But it's that though, even like just the idea of like they just don't tell you they are, and it's like as you play the game, then you naturally find these new things. And to me, that's why I've always found it interesting. Of like, they can, instead of doing it that way, they decided to go kind of like a much more of like, here's a region, or at least a good chunk of region. Wait a bit. And then like in between, they do these interstitials of like every month they go, here's a new legendary, or here's a new this. But like as a whole, like that means those players like me might log on like that day during that month comparatively to like more so if there's like some continual reason to go on.
Let's see. Well, sometimes the new generations get people back into the game. Sometimes specific legendary Pokemon get people back into the game. This was just reminded me of my thought that I had just forgot and I just remembered. But so many people say that Pokemon Go is a game directed for children, and I completely disagree. Just because of the fact it's actually geared more towards nostalgia, because every single event they're doing is basically like everything we are basically reliving from our childhood. Like the whole Team Rocket thing that just happened, that's some of the GameCube games, and like they have this nostalgic factor of like doing the Kanto region super well, and you're choosing your first Pokemon all over again. Like all this cool, like interesting factors that really tie you into like what you remembered from the past. And then it's a great intro game to people who had never played Pokemon before. So it's really a game for everyone, and anyone can play, and I don't think it's directed towards a specific audience. It's like, even if you haven't played Pokemon before at all in your life, you could play this game. And it's pretty straightforward.
No, and I agree. That's kind of like what I was saying before, like the idea of like the mechanics of this game. Like, there's nothing about this game that is objectively hard to on a baseline understand what to do. It's just a matter of like what you decide to do or how you decide to collect the Pokemon.
Exactly. Like, some people are super into IVs, and I understand them, but I'm like, I was like, ooh, I want that one. I want this one. I want to collect all of them. I want to fill every single Pokedex.
So you don't have a second app on your phone? Just take a screenshot of Pokemon Go with the Pokemon that then tells you the EVs and IVs of said Pokemon?
I actually don't. Like, they have an appraisal feature in game, and they just actually enhanced it, so now I know which Pokemon are the best. Because, like, there's this whole thing called spoofing, and then there's like the apps like PokeGenie and stuff, and Niantic was closing down accounts that were basically cheating. I was like, I'm not really about cheating, and I like playing the game organically, especially if I'm traveling, because sometimes I get region locked Pokemon that I can't get from like other regions. So yeah, I just play the game super organically, and I end up using the in-game appraisal system, which has gotten much better, because before they would just tell you specific words, and I'm like, what does that mean? Why is this a wonder? You know?
So, like, I'm curious then. So, like, you have recently been traveling a lot. Have you had any of those, like, fun, like, you open up Pokemon Go in a different country or whatever, and you're like, I didn't know they had this. Why don't we have this?
Yes. Yes. So, like, the first instance was, like, 2 years ago when I went to Italy to go see my cousin. Like, she married this Italian guy, and they have a restaurant there now. And I got my Mr. Mime for the first time, because it's only available in Europe. And I was like, oh, this is great. And I was like, me and my brother were hunting for Mr. Mime the entire time. Every single time we had data roaming. Or like, I mean, like, you know, connecting to Wi-Fi at various little places, like at the train stations and stuff. Like, okay, where's Mr. Mime? Is the Wi-Fi gonna run out by the time we get to the specific Pokestop where it's spawning? Are we gonna be good? And like, we kept like going and going and going, running around Italy until we would run out of Wi-Fi from being disconnected to find Mr. Mime. And then this summer, I went to Australia to go see my family, and there was Chatot everywhere. So I was like, yes! Finally, I can get this singing bird Pokemon. It literally looks like a music. And then I got like a blue Shellos, and all this, like, I got a whole bunch of Kangaskhan. Because, like, my first Kangaskhan was traded to me by my cousin when he was visiting Chicago for the first time. He's like, oh, you want this? We have these everywhere. I'm like, okay. So it's, like, kind of cool getting, like, different Pokemon from different regions and having to actually explore and find them. It's kind of like how actual animals work. But, yeah, like, even southern states have different Pokemon, which is crazy. Like, I got Heracross from Florida, and like Carnivine from Florida. Like, they're like so
I'm marking
different.
My
yeah.
Pokemon down.
You should. you're gonna find like so many different things that are only available like more towards the equator. So you're gonna have a fun time.
See, the issue is I live in like the middle of nowhere enough where it's like I have Pokemon stops at like near the Air Force Base or at the airport, and beyond that I'm like, and there is no Pokemon stop for my apartment for like 3 miles. So it's like this weird thing of like I'll turn on the game once in a while, but there's like because there's no Pokestops, like your Pokeballs are a very limited supply. I've never understood the people who complain like I'm like, what do you mean there's never enough? Oh.
Oh yeah, so you're just reminding me, like, when I was in Australia, I live in the middle of nowhere. The time I got really lucky was whenever I would go into town that was 30 minutes away, or when I went to Sydney, which is 2 hours away from where I live. But there's literally nothing around me. And my Australian phone would never get reception where I lived either. Only like one brand of like an Australian phone company did, which was Telstra. So like I had Optus, so I couldn't even play Pokemon Go when I was at home. So I would like hop at the chance. Everyone was like, "We're gonna go out to shopping today." I'm like, "Oh really? Okay." So I would tag along and just play when we're all like running around town, going and getting groceries and stuff like that.
I totally know we're actually like getting groceries. You're like, and to catch this Pikachu.
It's so true. I caught a Volbeat in front of like one of the grocery stores, and was slipping out in the car because I was like, "It's too cold to go outside. I'm just gonna wait here." I'm like, "Oh, no way!"
Hold up. Did you say Australia was cold?
Yeah, it's winter right now.
See, so in winter in Australia is what I picture like what happens when you like drop an ice cube in hell. Like I still picture it being like this on fire place.
Definitely during the summer. During the winter, it was more cold than it has ever been. It even snowed when I was there.
Ooh.
So that was fun. Yeah, no, I think it was like 30s this time around.
See,
Yeah.
I like to scare people in Florida. And I go, I'm from Chicago. We hit -60 last year. And you see people's like eyes just pop out of their head.
Oh my gosh, telling people that made me laugh so hard. I was like, you guys don't even know how brutal winter is.
You're like, my first words always go, yep, I woke up one day and me and Dad are both like, yes, that is ice on the inside of the window. We don't know how it got there.
Oh my gosh, yes! Or like when you're traveling to places that are like 50 degrees and up and you're wearing a short sleeve t-shirt and you're just like, hey. They're like, why aren't you wearing a jacket? I'm like, oh no, it's nice outside right now. I may live my moment.
Literally that day it was -60. I turned my car on, and also I've never my car I think started crying when I tried to turn it on that day. I was like, we're not going anywhere.
Oh gosh. No. I went outside for like 10 minutes to go pick up Resident Evil 2 when that came out, and I was dying. I was like, nope, I don't want to. I want to be in my house now.
God. Well.
Yeah.
I think it's a fun place to end this fun, great discussion on Pokemon Go and the community around it. I'd like to thank you for joining me for this fun talk about this. Could you tell everyone like where you find the community you help to lead and how you hear about local Pokemon Go events?
Yeah, of course. So, I run Pokemon Go Chicago Squad. We're basically on all social media now. You can find us at our website, which is Pogo Chi Squad, which is it's POCHI squad.com. And then Pokemon Go Chicago Squad on Instagram. Well, actually, it's also. So, okay. So we're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. We have 2 Facebook groups, etc.
So you tell me
that was
people cannot find it. They're gonna be like in shock.
Yeah, I use we have hashtags now too, so you can easily find us through hashtags if you're like who, where, what, when, why, how. And I totally messed up and saying my social media, but you'll be able to find us just by typing in Pokemon Go Chicago Squad, even on the internet, even in your Google or whatever web browser, even Opera. So,
even Opera. Now, question is, does it work in Safari?
That's a question to be determined.
So if you're not giving confirmation here, it works in Chrome, Opera,
Yeah,
and we're not
Chrome.
we're not gonna say Bing because nothing works in Bing. We just pretend it doesn't exist. It's okay.
It works in Bing.
Oh, okay. Does it work in the old? Do you remember the search engine that was like the dog and it like combined all the search engines to one? It was like paddle search or whatever.
No, wait, what was? I actually
This
have
was,
not heard
this
of
was,
that.
2004 or whatever. And it was like a search engine where the whole
Oh my
thing was it
gosh.
searched all of the search engines when you'd search a thing.
Ah, darn it.
And it was
Like, in 2004, it was always on Cerebi.net or LegendaryPokemon.net or Barbie.com. That was like
God, therapy.
not really. Yep, that's like the #1 resource for everything Pokemon for me still. So that stuff. Like he's pretty good, and even now he has a Discord. I'm like, you are just living your dream, dude. You're awesome.
Like the damn Brits living their dreams.
So true.
But again, thank you for joining me. And tell me again, what is your Twitter if people want to follow you?
My Twitter.
Yes.
So it's my personal Twitter. So it's Multin24, which is MULTIN24.
Perfect. And again,
Yeah.
thanks Tasha for joining me for this fun discussion. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter at Mikey_Moni. You can follow the show at the SWW Show. Subscribe on podcast services around the globe, and we'll catch you all next time.
Thank you for having me, and have a great rest of your day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special live interview recording of the SWW Show. I'm Mike. Today, it's just me. I don't have AJ with me, but I have a friend of mine from Chicago who does that legal stuff. We all like to hire those people for hundreds of dollars an hour and are way smarter than all of us. His name is Ross, and he is a video game lawyer. Is that your best job title? What do you think, Ross?
I've been introduced many different ways. I don't think my title card has ever come out quite that way. But yes, my name is Ross Hersman. I am an attorney here in Chicago, Illinois. I work primarily with video game developers and tech entrepreneurs. When I am not working with my law practice Loading Law, I am the chair of the Chicago chapter of the International Game Developers Association, a board member of the Video Game Art Gallery here in Chicago, and I also work with several committees related to the video game industry and video game law, and specifically here in Chicago, I'm the organizer of the Chicago Video Game Law Summit. So I'm here to answer all your questions and queries about video games, video game law, and the Chicago video game development scene.
So, first obvious question too. Are you ever bored?
Am I ever bored? Never. Never. If someone is bored, they have a lack of imagination.
Because it always does amaze me whenever I hear like the actual list of stuff you're doing, and like especially now that you're like starting to make a point of like going to talk at things too. I'm like, you literally must not just get days off.
No, I'm one of those people who's fortunate enough to love my job, and whether or not that's my day job, my second day job, or my third and fourth day jobs, I try to keep busy whenever possible. There's too many cool things going on just to sit at home.
That's
Though
true.
I do enjoy sitting at home. I'm not gonna lie.
But that's true. But it's just always fascinating whenever I see stuff. Because every other day, I think I hear you do a new thing, or organizing a new thing, or talking a new thing, and I'm like, I don't know if he sleeps, and I'm pretty positive you don't. But yeah, so we have you here today, Ross, to kind of talk about like a bunch of the different things you do, and we'll end with a bunch of like fun legal question. I understand you have to give the nice disclaimer of this is not true legal advice. Go seek a law counsel, loadinglaw.com. I understand that.
Absolutely. I'll be providing lots of legal information, but not legal advice. So for legal advice for your specific personal to you queries, you can contact me directly. Send me those PMs and DMs.
Got it. Okay. So first, I think the first we talk about then is IGDA. You are the chair of IGDA, and you have been involved with it for a couple years even before that.
Yes, I've been affiliated with IGDA since about 2014 when I started volunteering. I've been on the board a little bit less than that, and I've been the chair of the IGDA Chicago board since the first of the year this year. And for those of you who might not be in the know, the International Game Developers Association is exactly what it sounds like. We don't bury the lead. It's right there in the name. We are an international organization of game developers and people who work in the game industry. We do social advocacy. We are a networking group. We're a social group. We help promote the interests of everyone who works in the game industry and act as a resource for all of them to do their jobs better and make connections to find other cool folks who work in the scene. And what that means for our Chicago community is our local chapter puts on lots of events every month and every year to kind of help foster the Chicago game development community. And we do that through educational panel talks, organizing game jams, putting together social mixers, and generally kind of creating a scene and a community for everyone to kind of get involved in.
Yeah, it always is interesting. So I noticed met you through that and going through the stuff too, and it's interesting like the type of people I feel like come out to the events because it's a very consistent group, and it's like in your head, especially you don't know these things, you're like it must just be like what people picture, and I'm not people who agree with the statement, but it's the what I'm going with just for the take of that's how to explain it is like you picture like the core game developer people, you picture like the artist, the designer, the programmer, so you get like the business people, the lawyers, the marketing, like you get the actual full sleuth of people who actually go there at these events.
That's true. We have a very diverse group from a lot of different disciplines within the game industry, lots of ages, lots of races, different creeds, colors, credos. Our community base kind of comes from everywhere because Chicago itself is a very diverse city. And that always leads to really interesting discussions at our events because we do have senior level management members who are in AAA who have, over 30 years experience in this industry, having conversations with, folks who just heard about IGDA and are, they spent one weekend at a coding camp and they're here to learn about programming and the industry in general. So seeing kind of that cross section of interdisciplinary study for me is always really rewarding. To see everyone benefiting from everyone else's shared experiences and with something that we all love, which is video games.
Which is funny, because I already see what I remember, so, like, IGDA did a Spooky Jam every year, and I remember the one last year where you had, like, the group of, like, the DePaul kids who, like, are this very known group who, like, did interactive controllers 24 hours. You had, well, my group got to even be known to other people now. I just go, I was the VR group there, and they go, oh, you're the crazy ones. Or you had, like, I remember you had the one guy who, like, straight, like, learned how to do tutorials during the game jam. And it was this very interesting trend of, like, the jump in experience beyond, like, different things and what people were doing in that same time period.
Absolutely. That's kind of what makes it fun.
So I gotta ask then, so obviously I have half a guess as part of it is, like, just knowing people in the area, but, like, what made you kind of, like, get involved with IGDA?
I first met some of the leadership at IGDA at C2E2. They had a booth at a local Chicago convention, and I was trying to kind of jump into the game scene here in Chicago with both feet, and it was very apparent to me very quickly that IGDA kind of was involved in everything that was going on. For those who might not know the Chicago video game community very well, which would be a very good reason to be tuning into this podcast, there's lots of different organizations, studios, businesses, and persons working in this community, all kind of doing their own thing. And they don't always talk to each other. They're all doing cool stuff, but they don't always collaborate. And something that I noticed was that IGDA kind of bridged the gap between all those groups with just that common love of video games. So I got into video game law and video games generally because I was always a gamer coming up. I loved interacting with narrative stories and playing games. I loved the sense of community established around playing games in groups and with other people. And when I was in law school, I came to realize very quickly that there are far too many lawyers who are not well versed in the nuances of pop culture, internet culture, and just developing technologies in general. I had law professors who didn't know what Twitter and Snapchat were, and they were lecturing on privacy and the internet. Something didn't seem to connect there. So I realized very quickly that this would be a very good niche and something that I would be very fascinated and interested in. So when I started reaching out to different communities here, I just wanted to kind of expand my knowledge of what the whole game development process was like, what the needs of those people were, how I could meet those needs, and how I could give back to a community that has given me so much here in Chicago.
Nice. So I gotta ask the nice fun question. I think I know the answer. What is your favorite event that you guys do every year?
We do a lot of really cool things, and I can't say that I love any of them more than any other ones. But one that I'm particularly proud of is our participation in the Extra Life charity every November. So for those who may not know, Extra Life is a charity that is dedicated to raising money and support for children's hospitals. Here in Chicago, we benefit the Lurie Children's Hospital, which is in the Chicago Loop. And every year, participants will play video games in tournaments and marathons and speed runs, all to raise money for sick and injured children. And it's a fantastic event that we run here in partnership with Lurie and the Chicago Extra Life Guild, where it's like a lock-in. It's like your favorite lock-in slumber party video game marathon where folks are playing games all night, they're drinking Mountain Dew, they're eating pizza, they're meeting new friends. We've got raffles, and we're supported by studios in the community and local community leaders. So it's one of those events where everyone's getting together for a good cause, everyone's having a good time, and it's really rewarding to see everyone having so much fun, doing so much good all at once.
It is always a good time, and I do find it interesting, especially that too with Chicago. For like relatively, like I know Chicago is known as this, like the nickname is like Indie City, whatever. But it's fascinating because Chicago over the years doesn't have the same amount of studios it used to have. But I feel like, no joke, you almost see every single studio involved with like an event some point throughout the year with IGA Chicago.
We try. That's one of my goals. One of my missions as chair of IGDA is to have at least one event a year with every other group firing here in Chicago.
Well, Richard, it's almost there. Like, it's pretty good, which is surprising. Saying some of the studios, you're like, that's not saying you wouldn't expect them to do a thing. It's just more of like, we don't have a ton. So it's almost like getting people to get the idea of like grouping behind is very interesting always.
Mm-hmm. I think it's always interesting, and it's never hard to find a commonality of interests with all the studios here. I mean, most of the studios that we have here in Chicago have been here for a long time, and if they haven't been here for a long time, they've definitely made a big splash jumping into the community and kind of making their presence known. We've got studios like NetherRealm that came out of, Midway, which, is arguably one of the most Chicago studios ever. That's
you also have like Iron Galaxy, which also came out of the ruins of Midway.
Sure. Yeah, we've got Iron Galaxy, and then we've got new studios doing, brave, interesting things like Level X, which is doing all kinds of work in the medical field and healthcare industries. So I'll talk to anyone anywhere because I think we have so much in common, and I think we have so many common goals. Why not? I'm always about collaboration and cross-pollination.
And let's also be honest, the legal thing I always point to is if you teach game design in Chicago, you had to have stepped foot in high voltage at some point. I think is basically the requirement of every professor, of every school.
I think so. I'd agree with that.
I remember, so it was really like, it's like all my professors at Columbia straight worked together at some point. I'm like, every single one of you like, uh-huh. Like, not at the same time. Like, it was the most like, of course we did.
Well, what you're hitting on is that the game industry, as large as it is
very small.
I'm always reassuring people it's a very small community, as big as it is. And by that, I don't mean it's small in numbers. I mean it's small in that everyone knows each other. We all cross paths one way or another. If you're an independent contractor working 9-month contracts at a variety of studios, eventually you're going to hit, most studios in your geographic reach, and so's everyone else. So that's a good thing and a bad thing sometimes. You make a lot of new friends. You cross paths with a lot of interesting folks.
Especially like how many like studios like do like a pop-up in Chicago and then either move or go on to do something else is very interesting. You get like the people who kind of wrap from the more triple double we have in Chicago, and then go to the thing quick, then jump back to a new studio, and it kind of like you get, and then during that they hire a person too, and it's this very interesting like ebbs and flow. It's always interesting to me because like Chicago on paper, it's a big city, it's not a big game city, but it is very much like, but because we're not, we have this inherent tightness to it.
Well, I don't know what that definition of what a big game city is. I mean, we've got a thriving independent game scene here. We've got multiple AAA studios, and, from all the events we've already talked about in this podcast, I would say we have a very active community. I think at any given moment we have at least 300 indie developers that I would consider full-time game developers working at one time.
And maybe I think that's kind of like, I think maybe the phrase I used before of calling Chicago an indie city makes more sense than like when I picture the big cities obviously in the country, I feel like majority of them have either more or more notorious studios, but maybe we just have a more consistency of studios and people like always trying to do things in Chicago is a better way to put it. Like we have like the tech incubators and stuff too, which have notoriously game devs in it.
That's true. I mean, we certainly have plenty of tech incubators here.
Nice. So as we jump to this next thing, is there any? So you guys just did the game jam then cross DePaul and Columbia? With IGA
We did. So this last weekend we had a retro-themed game jam, and we...
So PS2?
Have a... Say again?
So PS2 games?
No, sir. No, truly retro. No, Atari-era games. No, we had DePaul and Columbia students and plenty of indies, not affiliated with any of the schools, coming in to build games based on the Atari era of gaming. So we're talking really old school here. Limited color palettes, limited sprite resolutions, and most importantly of all, one button only. So we really wanted to challenge our devs to be as creative as possible with some tech limitations. I think these days the two most common limitations you'll see at game jams are either time or experience. When it comes to hardware, give someone enough time and enough experience, they'll make a very high quality product. But in the time crunch, if you limit someone's time and you limit their technology, they have to show off their creativity in other ways. So they came through in fine form. They made some fantastic things, and we're very excited to be showing off the product of that game jam at BitBash at the Museum of Science and Industry, August 17th through 18th.
Nice. So from the technical end then, so it was basically like, did I say something about you had to use Atari Color sprites, or is that just a bunch of people just decide to do that too?
We encouraged everyone to be as authentic as possible. So while it's very difficult to program natively for the Atari Color, we did not require anyone
I would
to
have
work
loved
in
to see
assembly or basic.
Every programmer just stares at you.
No, we did not require assembly or basic, but so most folks were using Unity, GameMaker, or Unreal, but we did encourage them to kind of create an authentic experience as much as they could by limiting their use of color sprites, refresh rates, and other technical limitations for what they were making.
So suggesting if you ever do that exact theme again too, you should just get a bunch of the NES Maker licenses and just make it so that then it has to run at the NES, and at the end of the game jam they have to flash to a card and play it action at NES.
That would be a good way to do it. I agree.
That'd be such a, again, one of those like weird hurdles. Because at least with you could do like, if you're making like a modern game engine, it could look like an Atari game, but not actually be an Atari game. So it's kind of like how a bunch of like the retro style games do it, where they're like, it's retro, but it would never run anything on anything retro because it's not actually in the way we do some of the back end stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So now we're gonna jump to part of the reason why I wanted to have you on this is to talk about the nice legal questions that we all have in the games industry that never quite fully get answered, besides all of us talking out of our asses the entire time. So the first one I had a question about is Let's Plays. So basically, because the thing was interested me is I have a rough understanding of like copyright law, and my understanding is always seems like Let's Plays fall in a very grayish area because like you're doing something with it, but it's not quite parody, it's not quite the other like things we almost accept in it. If you could kind of run through kind of like your 1,000-line view on that.
Well, the trouble with the interesting questions in video game law is that they're often the most complicated, and more often than not, there isn't a perfect answer to them, which is why they're interesting, is because you can kind of spin it one way or the other. And I think a third facet of what makes it complicated to answer these questions is often the quote-unquote good solution to a problem is a financial one, a business one, not a legal one, because money makes the world go round. So when we're talking about Let's Plays, we're talking about, more often than not, YouTube videos, Twitch streams, Mixer streams. We're talking about folks who are utilizing gameplay footage from a video game and either talking over it, commenting on it, playing through it, or interacting with it in some way in a new medium for entertainment purposes or informational purposes or educational teaching purposes. So your favorite Twitch streamer and your favorite YouTube personality who are playing the newest game, narrating their playthrough, talking about current events, and are curating an audience of people who are watching them and enjoying them. That's what we're talking about. That's the issue with Let's Plays. And legally, it's a very problematic area because what we're talking about is, as you said, we're talking about copyright. And that copyright is owned by whoever made that game. So the studio and the people affiliated with that studio or indie developer, whoever made the game, they own the copyright in it. And they have an inherent right of controlling how and when and where and in what context that game is reproduced. And that is good. That is good and proper, and that is how it should be. But we start getting into interesting areas because people need to reproduce that content in varying contexts. So, for example, if someone is writing a review of that game, they'll want to include a screenshot, they'll want to include a snippet of video, or some other content. And there are, categories or classes of times and places and contexts of when that's acceptable, when the legal term of art here is fair use, which is a very deep rabbit hole that we could go down, but I'm going to try and keep it high level because I know we have a lot of topics to get through. Now, where it gets very, very complicated is when you start having someone who is not just using a small snippet of game footage, they're playing through the entire game. They're reproducing the work in its entirety, and they are adding some level of content. And lawyers are always arguing over, at what point are they adding so much content that they've created new content, or are they just leeching off the original thing? And, parts of the arguments that decide those conversations are financial impact or the effect on the market or any number of things.
So, for example, then, and this may be like a hypothetical that maybe at least could lead in some direction. Okay. If I did the idea of like people do like supporting podcasts for films, and they go and start the film in 3, 2, 1, and at that point, they're making their own content, and if you happen to put it on there, it's more of the they're not directly doing it. If games found a way to do that with Let's Plays, does that at some point go it's that weird gray line again, but it's inherently harder because games are interactive?
You're saying if someone's doing like a DVD commentary and
kinda, yeah. If it's a DVD commentary and they go, and you jump on this gameplay footage the dev dropped.
Well, it depends, because and that's my answer for everything ahead of the gate. You could turn off the podcast right now. My answer to everything is it depends. It gets tricky because depending on how much commentary you're adding or how much new content you're contributing, sometimes that you create a new piece of work that now you have an inherent interest in, and sometimes you don't. And I'll use this as an example. So because games are so interactive, and because to a certain degree some things are reproducible and some things aren't, you get a level of uniqueness to your own play. So let's put a pin in that and put that to the side and focus on a game that is more easily replicatable and almost has a universal experience for anyone who plays it. And a game I like to use as an example for this is That Dragon Cancer, which is a very cinematic game which takes you through the story of a father who has a child who is suffering from cancer. And in more ways than not, this is more like a movie than it is like a game in some ways, because there's a series of cutscenes and there's a very strong narrative to it. Now, folks might do Let's Play videos or reviews of That Dragon Cancer and might include the entire gameplay footage from start to finish. The effect on the market, then, is that someone could potentially watch a review of this game that is more like a movie and get the entire experience of the game that is like a movie without ever having purchasing it. And
Isn't that what he claimed, too?
Yes, that is what he claimed. And I'm inclined to agree with him, because I think at that point, people have no more incentive to go and get that product. They have no more incentive to buy that game or watch that movie or pay to watch that movie if they've already seen the entirety of it on YouTube. So while you might be adding some interesting commentary or some cool feedback or, cracking jokes, Mystery Science Theater style, you've really negated someone's right to, control how their work is being used. So that's an example of when you're taking more than you're giving. But now, in a situation where you've got a very large game and you're only using a portion of it and you're contributing lots of commentary, lots of, entertaining antics or engaging story, the more you add, the more in your favor that you're creating a new thing and not just ripping something off.
But then here's the flip side then, in the hypothetical. If we lived in the world instead of you did someone like PewDiePie did That Dragon Cancer and then it led to sales of the game, then would that nullify that legal argument?
It doesn't really work that way. The simple answer is no.
Okay.
A more thorough answer of that would take way too long. But no, because finances are not the only factor here. If you review a game and your review of that game happens to lead to more sales for that game, that is completely independent and irrespective of whether or not you committed copyright infringement doing it. Those are completely different factors.
Just realistically, you're less likely to be sued because they had a positive outcome.
I'll say it's an argument in your utility belt.
Okay. Right, because the way I understand copyright law is you just want as many of those arguments as possible. That way, if a judge throws 1 or 2 out, or a jury does, you might have a couple that stick that at least makes it not as bad of a punishment or a response.
Now, more often than not, you're never going to get in front of a judge or a jury on a copyright infringement claim. especially your average YouTube user. What's going to happen to your average streamer is whatever content they're using is just going to get flagged and taken down via Digital Millennium copyright action, or Act action. So that's what's going to happen to you first. You could fight it and try and get it put back up, but you're probably not going to see the inside of a courtroom. You're going to get a letter from a lawyer telling you to cut it out long before you ever get to that point, and the numbers in that letter are probably going to make you want to call it quits before you ever see a judge or a jury.
Yeah, that stuff's always interesting, especially like you have like YouTube's automatic algorithm, which I'm always like, that's a fascinating whole beast on its own.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in your top line argument then is, Let's Plays are very, 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 very great.
I would agree with that.
So I have the question, which I hopefully is the easy one then. So if I'm an indie studio and I make a thing on my website that go, everyone's allowed to use my stuff in any capacity, and I release this statement, I assume at that point the Let's Plays they do in response are legal.
If you're going to do that, I'm, again, not advice, but legal information. Writing things down is always good. Contacting an attorney to craft that language and make sure that it sticks and is in line with your local jurisdiction's laws and particular nuances, always the best bet.
So you're not guaranteeing it, but on a happenstance that it is. Because there's a lot of times.
Oh, I'm giving no guarantees today. I guarantee nothing.
But like it's very much on half. So you hear a lot of indie studios, if you go on their websites, they're like, we give permission. So like at least at that point, if you're the content creator, you at least have some level of something to point to.
You would have something.
Okay.
I won't say what it is, but you would have something.
Nice. So the next of our legal thing we have to talk about is second-hand code. So this is sites like GSA, and there's a few other ones that are like key buyers, that either you buy them directly from people who are selling the keys, or from like somehow the site themselves mystically gets keys, as they point out, and they don't explain where they get them from.
Right. I would call these gray market keys. What you have in your hand is not illegal, but the way that it was obtained potentially could be. And the issue here is very often studios, developers, they will want to market their games. They will create a number of free codes to access that game, download that game for review purposes. And they will distribute them to streamers, media outlets, whoever. Now, being busy as they are, a lot of those streamers and media outlets don't have time to play every game that they're sent. They don't have time to review everything. And more often than not, these codes go unused, or, in the context you're talking about, resold or given away.
Mm-hmm.
The problem there is that when that happens, it's going against the intent and direction of the whole purpose behind creating those codes in the first place. The point of those codes existing was for there to be a review from a approved reviewer. And when this happens, practically what ends up happening is, a lot of times this is before major release dates. So sometimes these codes might lead to leaks, they might lead to hacks, they might lead to mods, they might lead to game details being released in an unauthorized fashion before release date, which then impacts market sales. It's kind of a nasty situation. But ultimately, if it's not yours, you shouldn't be selling it, you shouldn't be giving it away.
So then, again, no promises. The people who, let's say they bought a game on one of these websites, but it's like a game that's out already, would the legal buck go with the seller, the buyer, or in your head be some combination of the above? Or did it come down to what if the buyer knows?
It's always going to be some combination of the above, but think of it this way. If lawyers love analogies. So if a download code for a to-be-released game can be compared to a ticket to a concert, the person scalping the ticket is breaking a rule. The person buying the ticket is breaking a rule. So it's both.
Okay.
And the fact that it's happening is affecting the overall market value of all the other tickets that are being sold to that show. It works kind of the same way in games. So if someone gets a code to use for a particular purpose and they sell it, redistribute it, give it away, do something with it they're not authorized to do, depending on how that code was sent, there might be a contract involved with it. A lot of these codes go out under license, which comes with consequences, sometimes not. But they could potentially be in trouble. And then whoever is accessing that code might be breaching terms of service or end user license agreements for a particular platform. If they are using a game that they don't have access to, or if they are creating hacks or mods of a game that are not authorized by a developer or community, they might get banned from a network, dropped from a server, or something worse.
Interesting, because like to me it was recently I was seeing I think it was G2 was coming under some like fire of like developers being like, we never gave you these codes, where are you getting them from? And they're like even like responding on social media being like, we don't say where we get our codes from, and they're like selling them at prices where people are like, we never sold this game at this price and you're claiming you're making a profit. How is this possible?
Mm-hmm.
And always these things. That's why to me I'm always interested because like I think most people will probably agree it's a very shady practice these things run, is a good way of putting it. It might be in the clear, it might not be, but on face value it's a very shady thing, and like every developer is like, ooh.
Well, if something's too good to be true, it probably is. If you're buying a code for a game at a severe discount,
Like dollars.
Yeah, you should correctly infer there's something shady going on.
Mm-hmm.
Those codes might not be authorized. They might be, generated by a key generator. It's anyone's guess. Who's to say?
Or even you have like the weird thing of like, developers on Steam have an access to a portal which allows them to create Steam keys. But again, the idea of those keys, I believe, are technically not supposed to be for sale. And it's always interesting. I wonder how many times something like that happens too.
I'm sure it happens plenty.
Yeah. But again, it's one of those things that I think you said too, it's like you might be breaking like the ULAR or something along those lines where it could be a bigger problem and besides just the baseline legality of it.
Right, I don't think a cop is going to come and knock on your door and be like, hey, are you playing an unregistered copy of Dota in here?
That'd be pretty funny.
That's not going to happen. But if you're on a server with an unauthorized key, you could get booted from that server. And it might be a problem because the end user might be innocent. They might not know that the key that they bought was bogus, but it might come after they've poured 100 hours into leveling up a character, and now they've lost all their loot, they've lost all of their experience, and they might be banned from a network from a game they love. So it's one of those situations where, was it really worth saving, the $10, $15, $20, whatever it was, to risk all that? To me it's not, but I'm also a lawyer, so that colors my perceptions a little bit.
That's right. You probably look at stuff and go, I've actually had always picture like a rating of like percentage this might be illegal, and like depending on the thing, you get like a certain threshold, you go no.
Well, I'm one of the few people who actually reads those things that everyone just clicks agree to, and
so have you actually read like the 1,000 pages ones, like just because, not from like for a job, but even like I'm curious.
I'm mildly curious. I can't say I've read all the way through all of the ones over 1,000 pages, but I was playing a copy of Crash Team Racing the other day, and it had about a 20-page agreement I had to read through before I got to play it. So I read it. I was interested. I was actually pretty impressed with it. It was written in pretty good layman's terms too. So
yeah, because most time they're like, client. It's something that usually get in the thing. They're like, henceforth will be known as this, and henceforth like, oh god, you can tell a lawyer just wrote this and went, here you go, it's good.
See, I love Herefor 2 henceforth. That's just fun for me, but I realize not everyone enjoys that. So when I'm writing my contracts, I try and make them as legible as possible.
Okay, the rest was look at this and go, we need to hire a second lawyer to verify the first lawyer is the problem with these contracts.
Why not?
So that's very interesting then. So again, secondhand codes. Gray, we'll call them. So
absolutely, yeah.
So this is more current news stuff then. So the ESA, who runs E3 and is also, this is the part that intrigues me also, and is also the Washington Video Game Lobbying Organization, just had a massive data breach until literally hours ago. You can see this information of about 2,000 press accounts, so every single press member who went there as a press member last year, 2 E3s. Data was just in the open. Is that a good way of putting it?
That's pretty accurate. So a lot of this information is, still coming in because this only happened a couple days ago. But the long and short of it is that the personal information of a lot of video game industry press individuals got leaked. I'll say that it got leaked. It is accessible in a way that it was not intended to be. And, things are still coming in, so a lot of this is still to be confirmed, but the gist of what we're getting is that private information, including names, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, was easily accessible to people who should not have had access to it. And in a industry that sometimes is extremely volatile on social media, it's a major problem for that to be out there. And the ESA is going to bear a lot of responsibility for what happened here.
So then, the first question is, so I'm curious then from this general stuff when this happens, I assume, and you'll probably tell me I'm wrong, that if, as a publication, you accidentally leaked the information versus you got hacked and the information was taken, those are two different lines of how much fault you are to blame.
You're not wrong. And that's part of what's at issue here. It doesn't seem that they were hacked. It doesn't seem that there was malicious intent. You know, they were not maintaining a database that was broken into by, you know, a super secret spy organization or anything. It seemed here that they were maintaining a database that, a good word to use would be vulnerable. It was, you know, not as well protected as it should have been or could have been. That in and of itself is not necessarily a crime, but just industry standard and common sense would seem to preclude that it would have been a much better policy to keep this much safer.
Take the 5 minutes to write an encryption algorithm is what you're telling me? And yes, from the programmer's room,
would help.
I could write a bad one in 5 minutes. So I'm not saying it's great, but the whole point
Mike,
is...
you're not going to trick me into giving you legal advice. Stop trying.
The whole point is there's still some level of, like, you could do more encryption in some capacity. That might have been a better...
You can always do more, but what lawyers are going to have fun debating here is, you know, does vulnerability equate to negligence? And if there is negligence, what liability is there? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next. But there are some very basic lessons that can be learned from this, which is if you are an organizer of any event in the game space and you're handling any amount of personal information, if you're any event organizer in any industry and you're handling personal information, you have a very strong responsibility to keep that information safe and make sure that it is only used in the way that it was intended to be used and the way that was approved by the person disclosing that information to you. Because if you don't, you're going to find yourself in some hot water.
And I feel like they're about to. I saw things where it was going around of like already you have some lawyers like being like, we're thinking of starting a class action. If your information is affected, please assign your information to this form. And it's like, oh, it's gonna be interesting also just because they are the lobbying group also, and also E3 in recent years has been very much like the discussion started happening of do we still need it, and I think this is not gonna help that conversation in their favor.
I think that a class action lawsuit is pretty much a foregone conclusion at this point because this is a highly volatile situation. You have got some very high-profile individuals who are very much hung out to dry by this breach, and when you're this is leading to actual death threats and some very serious harassment of certain persons. And yeah, I see this going to court. I see this being a very big deal.
This is more speculating and less legal thing, but I'm curious of like the long-term consequences of with this will actually tie with the next topic kind of nicely too, is Washington, and so in America, politics are ran at some capacity of money, you will call it. And the video games have basically one group, which this is that one group who puts video game or whoever's, but some level they represent the games industry's interest, we'll call it. So all of a sudden you remove their cash funding, and then you have other groups who want to, say, blame video games, and then they lose their giant legal backing in Washington. I'm curious what the long-term consequences of that are going to be.
Well, I think that, the ESA's reputation has certainly been harmed here. Anytime that any company has a data breach, people tend to, not be very trusting of what they're doing. So I think some of the long-term consequences of this are organizers of major conventions already, per all the privacy laws that we have, should be extremely cautious in how they use, maintain, and encrypt the information that they're given. But I think this is yet still another example of what not to do, how not to handle things, and this is a teaching moment. This is an opportunity for folks in the game industry to take very seriously how data is being handled. And in terms of the ESA, lobbying politicians and government, You know, the U.S. government and the video game industry have always had an interesting relationship, to say the least. I say interesting because it's one of the nicer words I could use.
Which is funny,
But
because
it's
until
yeah.
I still stick with that. We have our hot button moments, but I feel like as a whole, they at least usually don't go head to head until they very publicly go head to head, and they kind of don't again. Like it's very much this like rocking boat.
It does seem that way. For those watching their Twitter feeds this week, unfortunately, the topic of video game violence leading to real-world violence has again reared its head, given the unfortunate events in El Paso and Dayton. And it's just a vicious cycle of every time something violent happens in the United States, people tend to look for a reason why or a cause thereof, and video games always seem to have their head on the chopping block for it.
Which is interesting to me because notice how never do comics come up, movies come up, music hasn't come up since the 90s. It's solely video games at this point.
You know, it's a rite of passage for every new media form. There's always that growing pains.
I would love to be the era in the 60s where like those damn comic books are making the kids shoot each other. Like just and now looking back at that, you're like,
well, you know, you and I know you and I weren't there to see it personally, but that did happen. The comics code was passed, and there was a time when many parents were very concerned of the harmful effects of comic books on their children. They were afraid it was going to affect literacy. They were afraid it was going to, make them bad citizens. And that is not any different from parents who are concerned, or adults. You don't have to be a parent to be concerned about what children are reading or watching or playing. But it's a common conversation, the idea being that engagement with some kind of violent media or sexual media or otherly media of any kind can strongly influence behavior. There's a causation argument here that watching something violent, playing something violent, listening to something violent will make you more violent, or at least desensitize you to violence in general.
So I think the argument that I think is valid, and this is not me defending the argument, I think there's an argument to be made of you be watching children and what they are doing, and I think there's an argument to be made of desensitization and violence. But I don't think video games are the problem in that regard, because our entire system, everywhere, every time, has desensitized everyone to violence. So it's not like I don't understand the point of like scapegoating video games when like Avengers is the most popular thing of all time. The plot of Avengers is half the people in the world died. And that's what we consider family friendly in a lot of ways.
No, you raise a great example. The most popular movie in the country right now is a very violent film. But somehow, in the conversations I've been having this week and in the threads I've been reading online, it has not come up yet. I've seen lots of lists of the most violent video games and the most graphic atrocities committed therein, but I have not seen or heard any discussion of the Avengers or the MCU. And it's interesting. My soundbite that I always trot out for events like this is, reading Treasure Island as a boy didn't make me a pirate. Playing violent video games didn't make me a murderer. It's not a 1-2 causation kind of thing.
Right, like if you maybe I think there's an argument to be had that if you lock someone in a room for 20 years and just on loop show them the most violent things and nothing else, that person might come out worse. But that person also comes out worse for other reasons on top of that too. It's not just because we handed them a controller one time.
Well, I think the biggest reason is you locked them in a room for 20 years. I wouldn't like you either.
Okay, maybe not the best analogy, but my whole point is that like when the people are like, well, obviously this happened, I go, the reason part of the issue with this one too is video games over recent time have become more popular. Crime rates have not skyrocketed in that same regard. So then, obviously, there is not a 1-to-1 in that simple data.
I think it's a much more complicated issue, and it's something that has been studied ad nauseum since, even before video games. We were looking into the effects of media across different mediums. And, we are all snowflakes. We all engage with our media differently. So, for some people, they seek out certain things because they like them, and others they don't. So it's for someone in my position, in your position, we're fans of games. Obviously, we're very well tied to this industry, and I think that we've seen the positive impact that games can make on people. And just from being around that, it makes me very disinclined to see the link that people are claiming that universally violent games or games in general lead to antisocial behavior or or violent tendencies.
Especially
it just doesn't
'cause-
happen.
So I think, which is always fascinating to me, as like when you grow up and then decide you want to go into the games industry, that image you had in your head is the like the big glasses, the breathing through your mouth level like nerd is what you picture, like from the 80s, is like you picture working on games, which is always interesting to me because like the people who make it working on games are not those people. They are inherently like the like somewhat social like not what you picture in the stereotypical head of like game developers either, and that's what I'm like for sure. Like statistically speaking, we were the people who probably played the most games growing up too.
Well, I think games are by everyone and they're for everyone. It's a very diverse community of people who play games, and they all play different kinds of games. There's no one kind of game. Not every game is a violent game. Most are not, as a matter of fact. So it's very interesting to see. And, you know, just in the current climate and all the discussions that people are having this week, where everyone is kind of trying to find a way to explain an unexplainable tragedy and using video games as an easy scapegoat, what I've just been telling people is like, you know, if you need a little ray of sunshine in your life, know that in Chicago this last weekend, 17 game developers got together in Chicago and made friends, made connections, made communities, and created new games together, and used it as a way to make some good. Not as a way to divide people, not as a way to be violent, not as a way to target anyone, but as a way to be as inclusive and diverse as possible.
It is for sure interesting because I think partially where I am right now is for sure with LA. I think because like I started doing the IGA stuff when I did, and you started to even learn like different game developers or like inherently like doing the game jams and all that stuff are like, good experience pieces. And some of my favorite of the year because it always falls through my birthday is like going to Extra Life and stuff too because it always like if I always remember it's like sometime during that weekend my birthday falls. And people are like, what are you doing? I'm like we're gonna go play video games and eat pizza till like 3 p.m.
It's a good time. It's one of my favorite days of the year.
So yeah, so that is our nice legal roundup with Ross. So again, the short of it is there is no clear-cut legal answer. Besides, when there obviously is, you just gotta pay a lawyer more money. We understand, Ross. That's exactly how it works.
It's a good way to do it. But if you are interested in learning more about video game law or getting more in-depth answers to some of the questions that we got into tonight, an event that I highly recommend is the Chicago Video Game Law Summit here in Chicago. It happens on October 25th, and it's going to be an entire day, not just 1 hour, but a whole day worth of panels devoted to all the topics we talked about tonight, with multiple lawyers in the field, with all ranges of experiences, from in-house to government to independent.
So actually, that's a good one I asked too. I never thought of it this way. So in Chicago, are there actually I assume there has to be more than like there has to be a few of you who like deal with like this kind of like vertical that you deal with in law, more than the chill industry because you're now co-chairing on the bar association something with interactivity.
Yeah, no, you raise a good question. It's one that I get occasionally. People will say, like, Ross, you're the only video game lawyer I know. As a matter of fact, you're the only lawyer I know. Are there others like you? And the answer is yes, of course there are. There are many of us. And we're a little bit spread out. So there are a few of us here in Chicago, and, you know, we all know who we are. But the interesting thing about video games is that it's such a, from a legal standpoint, such a complicated medium to control. It really touches every kind of legal concentration you have. There are, you know, IP attorneys who handle copyright, trademarks, and patents. There's business attorneys who are there to answer all of your business and startup needs. Tax attorneys to handle your taxes. You've got family attorneys and employment attorneys who can handle all of your HR kind of issues in the game industry. And then there are some of us, like myself, who are kind of a jack of all trades for things being video game related. You know, I would say my expertise is in video games and all the different kinds of law that fit into games, not the other way around.
So it's kind of like in my head, if I went to you, it'd be like, if I just want a game question, go to Ross. If not, ask Ross for a great recommendation.
That's a good way to do it, yes, and we do that all the time. So for any, you know, and any attorney will tell you this for the field that they're in, but for whatever reason, we might not be able to take your case. We might have a conflict because we know whoever you're having your dispute with, it might be outside our realm of expertise, or we might just be swamped. We might be having a busy week, and we might not be able to take care of you to the degree that we would normally. So those are all reasons why we will refer you to other folks, maybe in other jurisdictions, if you're outside of our bailiwick. But that is always something that we're happy to provide.
So I'm curious, because I know there's weird stuff with you being certified with the bar and stuff too. I assume any work you do has to stay in Illinois. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, you cut out for a
Oh,
moment.
is it? And even has to be, any of your work has to like stay in Illinois in some capacity, right?
It depends on the work in question. So, for example, there are federal things like copyrights and trademarks, which can be done by a lawyer in any state, and there's plenty of work that does not require a legal degree to do. Setting up an LLC, general business advice. This does not require being a lawyer. So, any layman can give sound business advice on those issues, regardless of where they are. Now, issues where a legal bar certification is required is when you're handling complex contract matters that touch and concern a particular location. So your lawyer will be able to tell you what the difference is when you reach out to them. You can say, is this something you can handle? I live here. Is this something you can help me with? They'll be happy to tell you yes or no.
That is very interesting. Because I just know it's because you're in a licensed industry, it's always this fun, interesting like game of can I do that? Can I not? And it's very interesting compared to like what I do, where it's like, sure, I can work on that. I don't care where you're based.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's incorrect. I do some government work, so I do carry your base. But the whole point is still the like, you straight have this very very solid like, here's the place I some capacity live and or work into, which is a very somewhat predefined space.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Well, Ross, thanks for joining me for this fun, I think, very insightful conversation of some ins and outs and some nice legal gray areas all around.
Oh, thank you. No, it's been my pleasure to chat with you and, kind of just riff on some of the issues that are coming up this week. You can always reach out to me anytime if you have further questions. And in the meantime, I will say have a pleasant week.
Nice. So that is loadinglaw.com and at loadinglaw on Twitter. And then you're also speaking at a nice conference coming up, I think in October too. You wanted to I just see your face plastered on that website.
Yes, we have a few things coming up. I think, let's see, the thing you'll see me at, I will be speaking at the Chicago Video Game Law Summit in Chicago on October 25th. I will also be speaking at GDEX, which is a conference in Columbus, Ohio, and the date for that is October 11th through 13th. I will be there speaking about all of your legal issues in video games, virtual reality, AR, at the very least. We may announce a super secret second panel. Yes, lots of opportunities to hear me run my mouth on video game law issues.
Nice. Well, again, it was nice joining. Remember, you guys can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Anchor, any podcast services of your choice. Just look at the SWW Show. Remember, we have now switched to every single Friday. We're trying to release a brand new episode. If not, it's for sure every other Friday. We're trying for every other Friday. We're still going good on that. So keep both our thumbs up. You can find me on Twitter at Mikey_Maroney. You can find this show at the SWW Show. Again, we will catch you guys next time for our normal episode of the show. And have a good day, everyone. This podcast was a product of the SWW Show. You can find more at the SWWshow.com or Facebook.com/the SWW Store or Twitter.com/SWW. You can find out more about Mike at Mikey_Maroney on Twitter and more about AJ at LoC4 on Twitter. Remember, new episodes come out twice a month, one focusing on the new entertainment news and one focusing on movie club, so the new and an old movie. You can find out more again at the SWWshow.com. You can find the show on podcast services around the globe.